For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. A happy Canada Day long weekend to all who are celebrating a very busy weekend, allegedly, in the world of hockey. For a lot of teams, it is. So far for the Winnipeg Jets, it has been on the quiet side. The calm before the storm, maybe we'll find out as the day unfolds, but certainly as everyone was watching on Friday night, and kudos to you, Dave, for doing a great job with your broadcast there, waiting to see if the Winnipeg Jets were going to get going, if they were going to throw their name in the hat and get some activity going. There wasn't any activity to be found on anticlimactic day one of the NHL draft. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you, Drew. Ez will be joining us shortly, but you know what? It's interesting. We did a 2-hour show, no commercials. We decided we just kept rolling.
No commercials, commercial free. Wow.
Commercial free. Well, you know what? Yeah, we went commercial free yesterday. And we had a good chat. We talked about really all the kind of pertinent things that are bubbling under the surface for the Winnipeg Jets. And of course, Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke before the draft got underway. He said some things of note. There were some things you could glean from what he was talking about. So we have that up if you didn't get a chance to watch it, 10 minutes with the Jets GM. I put out some of the more relevant stuff on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, it's just it was an interesting night. And so it wasn't even really from just a Jets perspective. There's all this buildup, all of these things that were going to happen. I mean, we've been to drafts before.
Yeah.
We've heard, and it was interesting. They had the goal horn. It was kind of funny. It was almost like it was irritating Gary Bettman every time it would kind of go, the foghorn would go, and he'd be like, okay, I get it. But it seemed like it was a really cool environment, but it wasn't just the Jets, right? Like, I mean, really the trades weren't players being involved. It was just like, okay, the Minnesota Wild want to move down to 12 to 11 from 12 or 13 to 12, whatever it was. And so little trades like that, the Oilers getting into the first round after they didn't have a first round pick to get the guy at 32. So, I mean, there were just more like
O'Reilly, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. It was O'Reilly. Yeah. He's a kid from Toronto. So you've got, I think from Toronto. So anyways, but the point is that, it wasn't just the Jets that were quiet, but it was an interesting night. And again, like I said, the, Rutger McGroarty, the prediction by Friedman, Murat had said that the expectation was the trade was going to happen before the draft. That Kevin Cheveldayoff really didn't say much of anything about McGroarty, right? So that was interesting in that regard. And as Connor and I had discussed, and we were joined by Remus to kind of give us a little taste of what was going on in the draft.
A flare from the sphere, if you will.
Exactly. And so he was right by where all the players get brought out. And usually the media is not set up there. But again, the sphere is a little different than a traditional arena.
Were there any media that confused Remus for one of the players? Because when he's clean shaven, he does look quite young.
Well, that's that. He does. Yeah. No. The only thing that we got was a couple of jump ins by Rennie, as he was walking by, saw Remus on with us and jumped on the show. But no, I mean it's one of those situations that you expected maybe a little bit more, and we thought, if Kevin Cheveldayoff going to try and get into that top 10, top 15, but once it had already passed really by 12, I thought, well, McGroarty was a 14th 14th overall pick. You're not trading him for something that's lesser than that because you've had 2 years of development. Again, like there's definitely flaws to his game, and he was injured again for last year with the spleen injury. But ultimately, you've got a kid who I think has raised his stock. So expectation would be that once the Jets were past like really 11, 12, or not, once the draft was past 11 and 12, the Jets weren't going to be in. So we went a little bit longer to see if there was going to be anything. I think we ended up around pick 20.
I was expecting that at 21. As soon as I saw that the show that you guys you guys wrapped the show, I expected that was when the Jets were going to make a trade or something along those lines.
That was some of the words, some of the folks in the chat were saying, like, of course, what's going to happen is you guys are going to end the show, and then like 10 minutes later, the Jets are going to make a trade. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
that's okay, because then a little site called legalcurve.com will get my full and undivided attention. But of course, as you would know, and as the folks know, there was nothing doing, and it was pretty anticlimactic. It followed kind of a regular pattern. And again, we'll see what day 2 brings. But as of right now, things are quiet on the Jets front.
Yeah, it was very quiet on the Jets front. They made their splash earlier in the week, when they acquired or when they re-signed Dylan DeMello. So that was certainly a big headline earlier this week, and getting a very important piece of the puzzle on their back end under contract. But there's still more to be done. That's really what is important. To say, yes, that was one important piece, but you still have multiple pieces that should drop, that there should be additional moves coming. And as we sit here on this Saturday morning, you're in the midst of the time period where a buyout could happen. And, there's been no word on that front. There's been a lot of chatter about maybe the Jets would be in the market to buy out somebody like a Nate Schmidt and free up some cap space. There's been no additional moves, nothing on the Nikolai Ehlers front. But let's talk about what Kevin Cheveldayoff had to say.
Well, Drew, just quickly,
Nikolai Ehlers. Yeah.
Just before, when with regards to buyouts, because we were talking about finding some, and Cheveldayoff was asked about levers in the for the cap, and Weber said the day before, or sorry, that day on WST, that his expectation was there weren't going to be any buyouts. So usually pretty connected.
Yeah.
And so that was Kenny's kind of assessment. I just want to be clear that, because I agree, like we thought, oh, maybe a Pionk, maybe a Schmidt, maybe both, whatever. But it seems like that doesn't seem to be like in the cards based on what Ken was saying yesterday.
I'm not surprised to hear that. I don't know that I necessarily, I remember our old friend who's now the pro scout for the Leafs always saying that there's really no such thing as a bad 1-year contract, or that a contract that only has 1 year left on it is always, it's not a catastrophe, that it's not necessarily something worth ripping your hair out. So that if you have these two guys in Pionk and Schmidt on 1-year deals, yeah, maybe you'd like to move their contracts. Maybe you'd like to free up some space, but it's not the end of the world if they stick around for that 1 more year. You can stomach it for the 1 year. So, I'd never really fully thought that Schmidt or Pionk were going to get bought out. Now, of course, what's going to happen is 10 minutes from now, there's going to be an announcement that they're bought out. But I never really fully bought into it, because then you still have to go back and replace those guys. And yeah, they're making too much money. And yeah, Neil Pionk in particular was playing in an elevated role that he isn't suited for, being in your top 4. But at the same time, if you lose those guys, if you buy them out and you free up that space, well, there's not, especially on the right side, there's not somebody immediately coming in to fill that role. So the Jets, would be creating, yes, some cap space, but at the same time, they would then need to go out and find somebody to get that, to use that cap space. I think you're better off trying to target a way to move them each down lower in the lineup, get them playing softer minutes, and you can stomach the rest of their contract for the next season.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, ideally, again, this is in an ideal world. If you're a Jets fan, you're looking at this team and you're saying, right now, if you can target and acquire a top pairing right side D to play alongside Josh Morrissey, you have DeMello playing alongside Sandberg, right. And then even if you had Schmidt or Pionk in that third pairing role,
yeah,
and then they pair him with, let's say, Heinola,
yeah,
and then, for example, if you end up having to, again, or if Schmidt ends up being your 7th defenseman,
right,
then that's, it's palatable. Schmidt's fine as your 7th defenseman. He can come in and he can play, and good thing about him is he can play on either side. So
yeah,
that's fine. But I just think, like, as you said, you just need to find a way to shift them all down. One layer on the rung. Like, obviously Dylan DeMello can play alongside Josh Morrissey in your top pair.
Right.
But to me, Neil Pionk is your number 4 D man. That seems to be the problem.
You're exactly right. Exactly what you just said. Next year, if Neil Pionk is playing sheltered third pair minutes, yes, overpaid, but so be it. Whatever. Forget about the contract. It's not your money. And, if he's playing sheltered third pair minutes, and then Nate Schmidt is, in and out of your lineup like he was at times last year. But then again, yes, overpaid, but palatable. You can stomach it for 1 year. You can't stomach it for 5 years. I see Doug is saying 5.9 million as a seventh defenseman is a tough pill to swallow, and
Right.
it's certainly not ideal. No question about that, Dougie. But for 1 year, if you have to deal with it, so be it. You live with it. It's not ideal. It's not how you want to work your salary cap, but so be it for the 1 year would be my perspective, rather than buying him out, then having to go sign somebody to play that seventh defenseman role as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that the one thing I would note is the fact that if you think about that position of like, are you going to do, are you going to add that kind of guy and keep like you said in some, I think I just saw the comment, it's already moved, but something along the lines of like, well, that's a lot of money, and what are you going to do? It kind of means that you probably have Brad Lambert as your second line center, because you don't really have the money to sign Sean Monahan if you're keeping those two. So that I mean, again, like we'd have to look at the cap specifically, but to me, your cap gymnastics with trying to get a second a backup goaltender, trying to get a few things, is the fact that you're going to have to say, listen, like, if you're doing that, then you need an ELC, and you want that ELC to be along, as your second line center, because that to me is probably what you're having to do. If, as we just discussed, you're shifting, you're not buying those guys out, you're not trading those guys, you're retaining them. If you are, then again, like I said, that it means you're going to create a bit of a gap in theory, in another spot in your roster. So that's the limitation that it creates. That's why ideally you limit only sort of that quote soft contract or bad contract, whatever you want to call it, to maybe one player as opposed to both.
Well, you got $8.7 million in cap space. That's really what you have to work with at this point in time. I mean, we know what, Gustafsson and Perfetti need new contracts. They're both RFAs. Logan Stanley needs a new contract. He's also an RFA. Those three guys, I don't think are going to be hugely expensive. I mean, the Jets have the vast majority of the leverage in those negotiations. Stanley has arbitration rights, and so does David Gustafsson. But even in arbitration, those guys aren't going to get huge paydays. So when you're looking at where your depth is on the roster, and if you are looking to free up some money, then maybe, and we've seen his name out there. And again, I'd be surprised if it was a buyout situation. But maybe the Jets are looking to move off of a guy like
I pop up. He doesn't even say hi.
Well, you're here. I know you're here. I'll get to you in a second. I'm in the middle of my thought. But maybe you move off one of the forwards that are making, a lot of money, like an Alex Iafallo, who's been, who was certainly serviceable for the Winnipeg Jets last year. But he's a $4 million player who is, I would describe as replaceable based on what the Jets currently have on their roster. So if you're looking for a way to get, closer to that $10 or $11 million in cap space moving forward, then I think that's something that you would consider, because the depth, where you have the depth is on the forward group, not on the D group. So if you're getting rid of one of those two overpriced and expensive right side defensemen and Schmidt and Pionk, you don't have an automatic fill-in. You don't have somebody to immediately go in and backfill that position. These are all the machinations that the Winnipeg Jets are working through as the days unfold and as we get closer to July 1st. And with that out of the way, we say good morning to Ezra Ginsburg, playing the role of Ken Wiebe on this morning's show, appearing 10 minutes late. But Ezzy, we appreciate you joining us. Nice to see you. How was Inside Out 2?
It was really good. Yeah, it was a good film. Sorry, guys, I was late because my babysitter was a little bit late, so that's why I wasn't able to join the show right at the crack of 9 o'clock. So glad to be here with you guys. But yeah, Inside Out 2 was great last night. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Good. Glad to see some quality time with Big Daddy and then the little kiddos. That's always great. We were talking about day one of the draft last night and not a lot going on and fairly anticlimactic, especially from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, as everyone was waiting. Was a Rutger trade going to happen? Was something else going to happen? And then ultimately nothing has happened as of yet with the Jets. We know that they pick fifth, I think, in round 2 today, if I'm not mistaken, which will start at just after 10.
They have pick 37, so whatever that is, 37.
So that'd be the fifth pick. Yeah,
yep.
The simple math would tell me that. But yeah, so that's where the Jets really are right now. And if there's going to be some moves, usually they happen within the next hour or so, because the draft starts 10:30 Central Time this morning.
I don't get a feeling that there's a trade that's going to happen imminently. And really, is there any rush to trade Rucker McGroarty, guys? Like,
Not now.
I mean, like, what's the difference between trading him now versus trading him in August, right? Like, clearly, I mean, it's out there, right? Like, we talked about it at length. The news just broke like 30 minutes before we went on air last Saturday, right? But I mean, clearly, Rucker McGroarty most likely is not signing with the Jets and he's going to be traded. But I just don't get the feeling that anything's going to happen in the next hour or 2 hours. Probably because I said that, just like I predicted the Oilers to miss the playoffs, they're going to go on to almost win the Stanley Cup, and the Jets are going to trade McGroarty to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Denton Mateychuk or something like that. But I mean, look, I'll say this much: Chevy wasn't giving much of anything yesterday when he was speaking to the media in Vegas. And you know, the one thing I thought was a little bit interesting is what he said about Nikolai Ehlers, comparing it to last year with Scheifele and Hellebuck. And that's why, guys, like, my tune has changed a little bit. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Sorry, I'm getting away from McGroarty here a little bit, Drew,
That's
and
fine.
getting to Ehlers. But, you know, I'm starting to think that there might be a chance that Ehlers signs an extension. We'll see what happens. But, you know, there's a lot of balls in the air. Like, I don't know if you're Chevy, do you want to be trading, you know, Ehlers, McGroarty, potentially Neil Pionk? His name is out there, right? Like, you know, I'm not sure if you guys touched on the buyout window, but clearly the Jets are not buying out Nate Schmidt or Neil Pionk. I mean, at least they haven't done it yet. So you have to think that, you know, Schmidt and Pionk could be on the table, guys, right? Like, the only defenseman right now that you can really lock in pen for the 24-25 season is Dylan DeMello on the right side. Obviously, Pionk and Schmidt are signed, but we know most likely the Jets are still looking to upgrade the right side, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's always the chance that, you know, on day 2 of the draft in Vegas, there's going to be a move. But just my kind of gut feeling is that the Rucker McGroarty trade it's not going to happen this weekend. It's probably going to happen later in the summer, but that's just me.
Well, let's talk about what Kevin Cheveldayoff said about Nikolai Ehlers, Dave, because as you mentioned, it's all over our website, illegalcurve.com, in case you missed any of the audio, and you can go check it out there. You know, Kevin Cheveldayoff called Ehlers, quote, a big part of what we have going forward. I mean, that's not the words of a general manager who's generally about to then trade a player. I mean, Kevin, now, of course, GMs always praise the guys they have. They don't often try and diminish their trade value. But Kevin Cheveldayoff, you know, has often, I would say, when he's spoken effusively about a player, it's been rare that he's immediately done a 180 and changed his tune and immediately, you know, tried to trade that player. So you hear what Kevin Cheveldayoff had to say. You go back to what Scott Arniel had to say about it. To me, barring an offer that completely blows them away right now, they've, you know, that their focus is on keeping Nikolai Ehlers in the fold, Dave, and moving him forward as a member of the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. I mean, based on I think I'm just trying to think of what the full quote was from Cheveldayoff. Nikolai is a big part of our team. We're very focused on trying to put the best team on the ice that we possibly can in order to compete for the Stanley Cup. So, now, you could say it's a little puffery, and he's just trying to, you know, increase the value and say, well, this guy's an essential part of our team. We can't afford to not have him. Oh, wait, you want to trade for him? Well, you can, but he's a critical piece on our Stanley Cup roster, so we hope. So, of course, the price is going to go up. But we'll see. And again, like I said, I'm with Az. Like, it seemed more likely that he was going to be dealt. Maybe not now. So that's definitely something that's interesting. And yeah, again, with the McGroarty, although I did joke last night, Ezzy, that McGroarty situation becomes a little awkward if you want to bring him to development camp next week. July 3rd to the 7th is what we believe the dates are. They haven't officially been released. And then all of a sudden, McGroarty's getting a question every day. Hey, so you don't want to play for the Jets? You don't want to play for the Jets? Now, he doesn't have to come because he came last year. So we'll see in that regard. But I just thought it would be rather a little awkward in that, you know, if you actually had him here and having to answer.
If they put him in that situation, then there's no question that he's not going to be a member of the Winnipeg Jets. The animosity will only grow if something like that were to occur.
Sure. Exactly. But anyways, going to Ehlers. So unless, again, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, and the one player that keeps coming to my mind, guys, and again, I'd have to fear you wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think, without the cap being manipulated a little bit and having to figure out to get rid of Pionk or Schmidt. But, you know, if the Calgary Flames are open for business, Mackenzie Weegar on that right side, doesn't he seem like someone that you'd like, if you're the Jets, you'd love to target and see if you could bring on board, because he's established. He's a top pairing guy. again, like I said, I think his contract's big, but you know, at the same time, that's a kind of shutdown guy you wouldn't mind seeing on this Jets team.
Right. And yeah, we've all liked Uyghur for a long time. And when you look at what Calgary's doing, trading Mangiapane for a 2025 second rounder, they're clearly opening up cap space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Calgary has something cooking. I'm not sure exactly what it is, right? I think Tyler Bertuzzi has been linked to the Flames, right? Like there's been a few players. But I mean, we know there's a bunch of UFAs coming up starting on Monday, right? Yeah. So maybe that's, you know, what's going to happen. There's been a lot of conjecture about the Calgary Flames. They're a team that it's kind of tough to see where they're going. But yeah, Mackenzie Weegar would kind of fit exactly what the Jets are looking for. And then that drops DeMello in theory down to a second pair with Dylan Sandberg, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see, guys, not just, you know, if we see any movement with the Jets, but if we see any other movement here. The second round doesn't start till 10:30 a.m. Central. So, I mean, we might hear a trade. I'm not sure, guys, if we're going to go till 11:30 this morning. I can stay a little bit late if you want to go a little bit late, Dave.
I think we go till
just to kind of provide a little bit of insight into the Jets.
I got to run at 11, so you guys can have fun with that, but that's okay. Yeah. But you know, that's what, you know, it's happened in past, is that sort of this hour or so, you know, going back to previous times where we've been doing, you know, extensive day 2 broadcasts. It's sort of in this hour or 2 hours before the draft starts that there's sometimes been some movement. That's why I'm sort of keeping a close eye on my phone and on X to see if there's anything developing. I mean, it's 20 minutes past 7 in Vegas, so you know, I assume the GMs and the scouts are up and getting some coffee and getting ready for a long day 2. But if there was something to happen, it's often going to be in this hour. But it seems like it's all quiet. I mean, yesterday, yeah, there was a little bit of movement, but there were no player trades yesterday. There was nothing involving any players. It was, I'll move up 3 spots in exchange and give you, you know, a 3rd round pick next year. You know,
I think the Mangiapane trade happened late Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, or Friday. But that was the only. I mean, look, Mangiapane had 35 goals 2 years ago. That's not an insignificant trade. And I think, you know, it's interesting what the Capitals are doing, right? Because look, the Capitals made the playoffs, then they got swept, right? Then they trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois. They trade for Andrew Mangiapane. Clearly, they're a win-now team. I'm not going to declare the Capitals up there with the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes. But it's just interesting. The Capitals seem to be active. And you're right, San Jose moved up. And I'm forgetting who else. There was a couple of teams moving. Montreal.
Minnesota moved up.
Minnesota moved up.
Edmonton moved up.
Yeah, Edmonton moved up. So you saw like 4 or 5 teams move up in the first round. But you're right. We didn't see any player-for-player trades.
Right.
And, you know, it's hard to predict, right? Because you don't want to go on the line and say that there's going to be like 3 or 4 big trades and then nothing happens. But there's certainly like a lot of balls up in the air, that, like specifically with the Jets, right? Like Rutger McGroarty, you have to think that most of the conversation Chevy's having right now revolve around McGroarty. It seems like the Ehlers talk has quieted down for now, at least.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm with Ez. Like, it's the problem is for me, you know, Weber called them pressure points, right? These are opportunities or pressure points where you have everybody in the hockey community together. This is where you're, as Kevin Cheveldayoff would love to say, you're always having conversations, but this is the place to do it. And if you're going to make a deal, it would seem like now would be the time, like would have been this weekend. And I would suspect it would have been last night. And we, you know, Murat put out an article talking about some of the things that he had heard with respect to Kevin Cheveldayoff and some of the dialogues. The thing that doesn't make a lot of sense is that it seemed like every team in the NHL was actively pursuing Rutger McGroarty, and yet he couldn't get the deal to at least get into what we presume was into the top 10 of the draft last night. So to me, you kind of lose the impetus to really, you're still in a position of strength. You've got this player for 2 more years. So if I'm the Jets and I'm like, okay, I don't like the deal.
We have control of him for 2 more years.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly. You have control of him
in
for
theory,
2 more years.
But
yeah, no, but I mean, look, he's not a free agent until, you know, summer of 2026. So, I mean, it's
a long time for him to delay his professional career.
That's right. So that's what I'm saying. So he's not going to sit there and say, well, it's not a big deal. I can just pick my team in, 2026.
It's not going to happen. You know that, Dave.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, and it also from the Jets, obviously you're not going to let a first rounder get to that point. So the trade would definitely happen if minds aren't changed, hearts aren't changed. And like I was saying on the show last night, remember guys, stuff comes out in the media. Now the Jets haven't pilloried him. He hasn't pilloried the Jets as far as we know, right? I mean, obviously, maybe there's been some, but everybody is saying that both sides are tight-lipped, which means that they're not letting stuff get out there, at least in an obvious manner.
The Flyers were tight-lipped about Cutter Gauthier, though, right?
Well,
Like
that came out of nowhere.
That came out
Right.
of nowhere as well, Dave. So, like, I think that he's going to get traded very soon. I don't think you want to let this go any further. And honestly, development camp is kind of an awkward situation, right? Like, are you going to just not have him at development camp because you know that he's not going to play for the team? Because he can't come to development camp if he's not going to be playing for the Jets. That just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense for him to come to development camp at this point in time.
It would actually be such a mockery of development camp if you're having this guy there pretending like he's part of the team and then you're going to trade him like 2 weeks later, right? So I mean, I don't know if that's an impetus for the Jets to trade him before development camp, but that's you're talking about what development camps in 5 days or 6 days.
Not officially, but it's usually shortly after free agency wraps
but let's
up.
just say a week.
It
starts in a week, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I know what you're saying, Dave. The Jets have team control, and you know the Jets are, look. Chevy doesn't have to trade him anytime soon, but it just seems like his trade value has never been higher. And don't you want to maximize that trade value and get this dealt with as soon as you can, right?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of the point, is that you're right, as you don't necessarily, I mean, look, if he has especially with Michigan not being as good a team next year as they were this year, his value could decrease. He might not be as productive in his third season in college as he was in the second one. So you're absolutely right. The trade value is high. I just think from a Jets perspective that it doesn't seem like he's going to, be dealt right now, because again, I don't like, if you're the Jets, maybe you're getting him you're trading him for a player, but like, you're obviously not trading him for picks. You're not, I guess what I'm saying is you're not future casting. You're not going to say, okay, we'll take a first rounder in 2025.
I would love to know if Chevy was trying to move up or get a first round pick for Rutger McGroarty. Like, was he trying to get into the top 5, right? Like, I don't think Chevy would take a 20th overall pick for Rutger McGroarty, but maybe he was trying to get into the top 10, right? But I agree with you, Dave. I mean, I'm not sure, what the indications are that McGroarty would be traded today before the rounds 2 through 7. But I still think a Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale type of trade makes the most sense, or Rutger McGroarty for a similar age prospect makes a lot of sense. Well, I don't think you're trading him. I don't think you're trading him for any type of younger prospects. Like, I think if anything, you're trading him for a 20 or 21-year-old forward or D prospect.
A player who can help your team this year.
Yeah, or in the next couple of years. Yeah.
Right. So what about Columbus's 5th overall pick from 2022?
Yeah.
Juracek, right?
Juracek.
He's supposedly disgruntled. He's a right pairing defenseman. Played, I think he split his time between Cleveland and Columbus last season. So there you want
to put up big numbers, offensive numbers at the AHL level.
And what I'm saying is, like, it wouldn't be the first time the Jets and the Blue Jackets didn't really work out for either team, but have flipped prospects. So I'd be curious to see if the Jets, look at Columbus and say, hey, here's a possibility. We'll give you this guy and we'll take that guy and we'll add to our depth on the right side of our D prospects.
I see that Jim Toth is about to join us, so let's take our first commercial break of the morning, and when we come back, more Jets talk with our good friend from CJOB 680, Jim Toth. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, Jim Toth up next. It's Saturday morning and the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. I know that Jimmy's trying to get in. He seems to be having some sort of technical difficulties. So
yeah, he's at his kid's soccer practice or soccer game, so that might explain that. But yeah, he should be popping on in a couple seconds.
Okay, we'll try and get him on. Yes, kids' soccer games tend to be not conducive for necessarily joining the show. But that's okay. We'll get Jimmy.
That'd be great. He scores. Okay, let me keep telling you about Ehlers.
1 hour away from the start of day 2 of the NHL draft. The Jets pick second round, 5th overall. Day 2 usually does go quite quickly as everybody, at least a lot of the teams will have flights to catch. I know some teams are sticking around Vegas and actually running their free agency boot camps, let's call it, from there. So we'll see about the pace of day number 2, but everything will be covered in its entirety on illegalcurve.com with Dave M doing the yeoman's work that he always does on that front. And we'll keep you abreast of any developments regarding the Winnipeg Jets. I guess the big news of the week from the Jets perspective, and as we wait for Jim Toth to join us, is Dylan DeMello signing the contract extension. So you knew the Jets had to get something done. And this signing was the most obvious of them all, in the sense that the player, the fit, his love of the city, everything about it made sense that Dylan DeMello was going to get under contract. But I'll admit it, guys, as we sit here, a few days away from Canada Day, I thought that the closer you go to July 1st, maybe you wait and look to see if the grass is greener on the other side. I guess, Ezzy, I'll start with you. Your initial thoughts: 4 years, $4.9 million per season for Dylan DeMello.
I obviously love the contract, and we talked about it last week. You're right, Drew. I mean, there was a little bit of uncertainty. Could DeMello wait until Monday, July 1st and see what's out there? Didn't mean that he wasn't going to sign with the Jets. I see Jim popping in here, so hopefully he can join us right away. There we go, Jim. We're just talking about Dylan DeMello, his 4-year contract. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, gentlemen. How are you? You got me here?
We got you loud and clear. We appreciate you fighting through the technical difficulties and joining us on this Saturday morning, Jimmy.
Last time it was my mic, now my I need to get out of this industry. I have no idea what I'm doing. I apologize.
Let's go into coaching soccer professionally, Jim. I think that's our calling.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work out for me either. So, but I don't
want to brag, Jim. I wrapped up coaching U7 soccer, and I was pretty good at giving out the medals and the Tim Hortons soccer balls. So I was very proud of myself. Those kids, let me tell you, they love getting medals.
The irony, the sad part is they also were supposed to get some Timbits, but Ezzy just kept those for himself and rewarded himself for coaching.
I was hungry.
Well, at least you got the sponsor too. Maybe they didn't deserve the Timbits. Maybe they didn't listen to the coach, right?
Yeah. They should have ran a little bit harder, Jim.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to want the ball, right?
Eye of the tiger. Jimmy, obviously talking about DeMello, talking about the sort of the night that was last night. I guess we'll start there and we'll get back to DeMello. Are you surprised that it was all quiet on the Winnipeg Jets front? Ultimately, we don't know, how close they came to doing something, but ultimately nothing ended up happening with regard to the Winnipeg Jets last night. That surprise you?
Yeah, well, it doesn't, right? Like, I think I've been around long enough to know, and I said this on Friday's Jets at noon, even with Nick Ehlers, that I think they'd like to move him, and I think they would like to improve their team, but they won't if it doesn't improve their team. And I wanted to be emphatic on yesterday's show that I think it's a 50-50 chance that Nick Ehlers is a Winnipeg Jet next year at training camp. That's the one thing about Kevin Cheveldayoff, right? Like as the night went on, and I heard you guys briefly prior to coming on when you're saying, it wasn't going to be for a 20th pick or a 25th pick. Like Boston had the 25th pick, and they seem to be interested in him. He's a top 5 pick right now, right? Like I do believe that Rutgers NHL ready, but Kevin Cheveldayoff historically has done nothing but win trades and done nothing but do trades that improve this team. And even the ones where we look and go, I don't know about that. We don't have to look very far than this past summer with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Do I think he was shopping Mark Scheifele last year? I think I do. I do. I don't think. Do I think that, teams were calling about Hellebuck and he wasn't really shopping him? Yeah, I do. I think he was listening. And I think that's what any good GM does. So as the night wore on, Utah was interesting to me at 6 because I think T. Ginla would be a ultimate Winnipeg Jet. And let's be honest, I think a little bit of the Rutger McGroarty kind of power forward center, right? So when Utah made that pick, because I am not surprised Utah moved up again and gave away 3 picks. They have so many of them. It's too many. Yeah. And even if half those picks turn out, you have 13 to 14 players within a year or two coming off ELCs. It just doesn't work that way, even if 9 of them hit of the 23 picks. So as the night wore on, I was like, well, the Jets aren't going to do anything. I wasn't looking for the draft for them. I don't think it was a deep enough draft. Like I love what Calgary did at 9, but I really raised an eyebrow what they did at 28. And then with what Dallas does, who Dallas drafts so well, right? Like they've set themselves up for the next 10 years basically on 2 drafts. That when they took a bit of a risk, I thought, well, that's this draft. Now you can go off the board because everybody after the first 7, 8, 9 players are parallel to each other in talent. So once they got out of the top 10, I was like, well, if the Jets make a deal, it'll be for a player. The other thing is, guys, they don't need a first round pick. Like what's lost in the Rutger McGroarty thing and what's so disappointing, I think, or should be for the Jets fans and the organization is, did they want this guy to develop and take the usual course? Yes, but that doesn't mean he wasn't going to be in the NHL this year. I could foresee Rutger McGroarty, for everything I've read about him, coming into the Moose and within 23 games being called up over Brad Lambert or Chaz Lucius. That's what's disappointing about this. And I think for everybody who goes, the Jets have this trend of slow development that's going to bite them, and it's a bad trend to start. The bad trend to start is to go, oh, you want to play in the NHL? Okay, we don't want to lose you, so here you go. That's the bad trend.
That's what remember, the Thrashers, going way back, were notorious, Jim, about any first-round pick. They immediately got a spot in the NHL. And how many first-round picks did they ruin as a result of that approach?
Drew, did you just say Alexander Burmistrov? Is that what you just said?
Well, Burmistrov, Zach Bogosian has had a really good career and won a Stanley Cup, but his development over the first 3,
you go back to Evander Kane. You include him too.
I was stunned during the playoffs when they said 15-year vet Evander Kane. And I'm like, 15 years?
We haven't aged.
And he's only 35, 34. But back to the question. So once they got out of the top 10, I'm like, well, this isn't happening for Rutger right now. But my point to this is they would need a player that plays in the lineup. If I'm dealing Rutger McGroarty, give me somebody that's going to play for us this year because we're in win now mode. And I know how disappointing the playoffs were. I know it's another failure. I've been very vocal about what a cold, long summer this is going to be for these Jets core that goes. And look, we've had Kyle Connor on this week on Jets at Noon, and we've had Dylan DeMello, and they both are agitated. They're like, I know I don't watch the playoffs, and I don't like. It's at a point where I'll pay attention and happy for anybody I know that won and Maurice, but we want to get there, and there's frustration there, and there should be. So to me, the Rutger McGroarty deal wasn't even. I don't know if they want a top 5 pick because nobody I saw go in the top 5 is going to play next year for the Jets. So they want a player that's going to come in and play now for him. So I don't think it's dead. I don't know if it's going to happen now. I don't know if it's going to happen in a week, and even if they're shopping either, I just think it's once they got out of the top 5, but I wasn't leaning towards them moving into the first round anyway. I don't know how desperate they were for a first round pick. And I think we saw that once pick 20, 23, 25, 28 rolled around.
Jim, you just mentioned Dylan DeMello, and you and Cam had him on Jets at Noon on CJOB. And, I want to get your take on, I thought, the reaction to the signing was a little underwhelming as far as I was concerned. Like, look, I think you'd agree the Jets increased their offer. Like, when we were all of us kind of like dime store capologists were trying to figure out, what was going to happen with the DeMello contract. I think on a legal curve, we said probably between $4 and $4.5 million. And then he ends up getting closer to $5 million. And my thinking was, if you're going to overpay a guy, like you just said, overpay a defenseman who literally will like bleed for his team and wants to do everything to win a Stanley Cup. Like that's DeMello, right shot defenseman who, he's highly competitive. And you can tell after games, between games, like the guy lives and breathes hockey and he hates losing. Like I thought it was a great contract because we talked about it last weekend. And I know you and Cam talked about it. It looked like he might test free agency, right? So to me, like this is a huge contract. Imagining that right side without Dylan DeMello is kind of a scary thought, to be honest with you.
Well, and therein lies I want $6 million if you're Dylan DeMello, because What are you going to roll Neil Pionk out and who? And that's not a slight at Neil Pionk, right? Like there was some pressure, but this is the thing, guys. Like, and I asked Dylan when he was on the show straight out. I said, look, it's Winnipeg. You can't get free agents, but man, can they re-sign guys who got here? Can you take me through coming here from Ottawa to the point now where all he's talking about is my neighbors and our little cul-de-sac and the restaurants and this and that and how much he likes it and the family. He talks about the culture and the family, which, you know, he came in when there was culture problems here and the room. And so it speaks to, I think, what the Jets are and where they're going. We don't, you know, to me, it wasn't shocking because the shocking contracts were Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck.
Yes.
These are two guys that have spoken about Mark literally 2 seasons ago said, I got to think about me and I got to think about my future and stuff. This is a guy in Connor Hellebuck that said, I just want to win. And, you know, and stuff. And then, you know, 4 or 5 months later, they sign 8-year extensions. I think that's the part that's not talked about enough. Why do these guys want to resign here? Because all the outsiders, us and media and fans, and some fans are all in and some fans are very skeptical about how the organization is run, talk about like, well, the team does this and the team does that and the team, well, ask a player. Like, if you're here, a player's happy to be here and happy to resign, and there's a culture there that he wants to be a part of. So, you know, I also, as good as Dylan DeMello is, I get a little nervous after $5 million a year, just because of the points, right? If you're going to pay a defenseman over $5 million, you need some points. Now he did have 30, but when he spoke about, you know, the room and how much he wants to be here and stuff like that, they need him in the room just as much as they need him on the ice. So I wasn't really surprised about that. I think him and Sean Monahan, as Kelly Moore was saying, is 1A, 1B, and you can say which one. But I knew that Dylan DeMello sort of, so 4 years, 4.9. Cam Poitras, my co-host, has a website that predicts what guys are worth, now whether they get it or not or whatever. And he came in at 5.3 for Dylan DeMello. So 4.9, again, it's not much, but I mean, how does Kevin Cheveldayoff keep signing these guys to less money? Dustin Byfuglien could have got $9.5 million on the open market. Blake Wheeler, and we know what Wheeler is. Like, I'm going to get hit by lightning right now by some Jets fans, but he could have, coming off back-to-back 90-point seasons, is looking at $9.5 million, $9 million on the open market. It's not a lot less with Dylan DeMello or Byfuglien or Wheeler, but it's less. And then let's Scheifele and Hellebuck get out of here. Now Saros is getting 7.78, but that's because Barry Trotz is the meanest guy on the planet, and I wouldn't want to sit in a room with him by himself. No, I'm just kidding. But when you look at what Shesterkin numbers are, I mean, he just won his second Vezina. What would Hellebuck get on the open market?
I think at least 11.
You look at how Mark
money.
You think of how Mark Scheifele turned his game in this year, and what a center would be valuable right now in free agency. Yep. He'd be looking at 9.5. So I think Dylan DeMello is a great player. I think he's a great guy, and they want that. And then I think at 4.9, it's a really good deal, and you move forward from there. And now we wait to see about Sean Monahan and any other moves they might make.
Saturday morning, about 45 minutes away from day 2 of the NHL draft, starting at the Sphere in Vegas. Jim Toth of 680 CJOB is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Well, Jim, we listened to Kevin Cheveldayoff's 9-minute presser yesterday, just before the draft got underway, and he was asked about, you know, of course, the focus isn't necessarily on the RFAs, but he was asked about Cole Perfetti and where it stands with him, and his answer was that they've met with his group. But I thought it was interesting how he pivoted from the signing element of Perfetti, but really talking about a role. And he talked about how the focus has been, or he put the focus, I should say, on the communication between Cole Perfetti and Scott Arniel. And then his quote, I'll read it to you, was, I think Cole's a guy that stands to really gain a lot. And I think it's interesting because whether it's Perfetti or Heinola, the GMs generally, especially if they're drafting these players, developing these players, they like them. Now, they can't get the coaches necessarily to play them. That's the coach's prerogative. And we saw that with Rick Bowness. But you kind of get the sense with Arniel that maybe there's going to be a slight change in that philosophy, and a guy like Perfetti will have a bigger role. At least that's the way it looks, like Kevin Cheveldayoff's trying to kind of position it.
Well, I think Scott Arniel is a big fan of what the Dallas Stars have done. Now, it's real easy to do what Dallas has done when you've got the Stan Covins and the Wyatt Johnsons and those guys there, right? Is Cole Perfetti those guys? Not yet. But I do think he believes in youth. I do think he believes in rounding out his lineup with some of that. And I think Scott Arniel's a guy that, was, if we go back years, was drafted the same year Dale Hawerchuk was. And what was his role? Well, he came in, and I don't know, I wasn't here then, but and no disrespect to Scott, because I think he had a great career, but I think that he's the guy who came in and everybody was down watching Dale get that check at Portage in Maine, and Scott probably was looking for an apartment to rent and hoping to make the team. He gets it, right? But he gets it also that the youth has to come in to play. He's been an associate head coach with the New York Rangers that went to a Stanley Cup final. He would know what kind of role youth had to play with a high ticket salary team like that. He would know what youth has to play when he was in Washington. So I do think there's a bit of a different philosophy there. And we heard Connor Hellebuck after winning the Vezina talk how great of a coach Rick Bowness is, and I don't want to take anything away from Rick at all. But I could see when Rutgers says, I would like to get into the lineup here in March last year, Rick going, no chance. And I could see Scott Arniel going, no chance. But also, we got Cole Perfetti here, and maybe he needs. I could see, Scott being a guy that goes, we should get him back in the lineup, as opposed to, well, we won 3 in a row and we got to keep it the same and stuff. So, and I don't know this is just my experience, but I do think Scott embraces a couple things that maybe Rick doesn't, but that's not a negative against Rick. I just think every coach does. I think the mistakes that Scott Arniel was referencing when he got the job in Columbus was he had to put his foot down and make an impact. And I think now he understands more so than ever that it's about getting the most out of every player and not sort of establishing yourself so much as the head coach. And I think that he will give Cole. Look, they need Cole Perfetti too, right? Like, there's no Tyler Toffoli here this year, and they need him to be successful. And I think that's what's lost when a lot of people bash playing time and stuff. Is even the Rutger thing yesterday, we were getting callers and texts from people going, they should have given him a chance and they should put him in the lineup and they need more blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, try to sell that to, first of all, I don't know how Rutger walks into that room in March and says, hey, I'm playing. Hi, guys. And how that goes over. And then vice versa. I don't know how you sell that to Cole Perfetti. I don't know how you sell it to Brad Lambert. I don't know how you sell it to Chiprikov. I don't know how, that kind of thing. You have to earn it. And I don't care if you're the Winnipeg Jets or I don't care if you're the Florida Panthers. But I think when I say that, some fans go, well, earn it means like 3 years in the minors and you got to have this many. No, you don't. Like, no. I mean, one of my favorite stories is, you guys know this, Kyle Connor went down after training camp when he was supposed to be on the team. I mean, people are probably sick of hearing about this. And I hear this all the time. Well, they weren't smart enough to keep him on the roster. When I talked to Kyle Connor about that, he said, I had the worst camp of my life at any age. I had so much pressure on myself and I was so nervous that I was just terrible. I went to the Moose and I thought I'd be there for a month or two at least. And Matthew Perreault got injured. But when I went to the Moose, it just, all the weight lifted and I just played. And so when he came back up 2 weeks later, it was different. That's lost in today's youth. That's lost in today's, think if they said, okay, Rutger, and he's on the team next year, and then he goes 6 games without a point. There's a process to this that works. And I'm a big believer in development. So my point to the Kyle Connor story is I think he would have played this year and come in, but you can't. Cole Perfetti's the same. Cole Perfetti in the post game, on the last game on 680 CJOB, talked about not playing for so long, talked about how he grew from that, talked about how he can't wait for next season because this has made him such a better player and even person. The only person who's not happy, or the only person who's really happy about not playing, is Cole Perfetti, it seemed like. Like, he really, takes it in for what it is. And I give him credit for that. I think he does. He's going to be a big player this year for the team. I think he's going to be more than fine. But I do think Scott's going to look at youth a lot more than maybe the organization has in the past.
Jim, there's the old saying that you can't go home again. With that, I ask you about Patrick Laine. His name.
I don't know why you say that, because Jim goes back to Lethbridge all the time, but
an expression. I didn't say it's necessarily an accurate expression.
I do actually get
but
that
it's an expression.
Summer. I don't know when.
What do you make of the chatter around Patrick Laine? Do you think there's actual meat on that bone, or do you think it's just more wishful thinking for a lot of Jets fans who remember what he did here in Winnipeg during his stint?
Well, to Ez's point, I do go home as much as I can because my parents are in their 80s now, to see them as much as I can. However, it's never like going home. It's never home again. Like
Right.
it's as much as they're
Visiting.
yeah, they're still in my
Jim,
my,
you're ours now. We've had you for
Yes,
we've had
exactly.
you for a while.
That's it, Ez. Like, so I think he can come home again, but it won't be the same. And I think that's a good thing.
Mhm.
My impression of how he left, and I'm not surprised he likes Winnipeg and the Jets and the city and the players and the organization and all that. That I don't think he left like screw you guys. I think he left because he wanted a ton of money and he wanted the top line right wing position. And I said at the time when he left, he'll get that before he left when he's the best right winger on the team. And at the time, he still wasn't. Blake Wheeler was still the best right winger this team had. You can say what you want about Blake Wheeler at that time, but he was still a better all-round player than Patrick Laine. I think hindsight is great because if you're here another year or two, Patrick, you're the top line right winger. And you're probably playing with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And you're probably on the number one power play, and you're probably playing 20-some minutes a night. But it is what it is. I think he can come back. But the idea that I saw like Rutger McGroarty for Patrick Laine, you're bringing in $8.7 million and throwing out nothing. That doesn't work.
No.
If you could do a Rutger McGroarty, Nate Schmidt, and have some salary retained and make it a wash, like if they want to keep of the 8.7, 2.7, and now you're trading a 5.9 guy for 6, that fits. I think it's interesting. I don't think the Jets would be against it. I don't think Patrick Laine would be against it. I'm not surprised. I do believe that. Why wouldn't you? If you're Columbus, would you like Patrick for Rutger McGroarty? Is out there. But I think he can come home. But I also look at the forefront of this. We're just all assuming that Patrick's, and I hope he is okay.
Mhm.
And I hate to say that, but it's not just bringing him home and everything's, a homecoming. First and foremost, which I understand if he wants a fresh start, he's doing well. And that's the best part of this whole idea. And then could he come back here? I think he could for 2 years on the right wing. Gabe Velarde, I think, could play some center, but if he's on the top right wing and Patrick wants to be in the top 6, and now you have like a hopefully Sean Monahan and a Cole Perfetti and a Patrick Laine line, I don't mind that at all. But it has to work, right? And again, to the original point of why there wasn't a deal done for Rutger or Nick last night, they're not going to do anything that doesn't improve the team. So these people who I saw putting out Nick Ehlers for Patrick Laine, that I don't know if that improves the team. And you're taking on more salary. So I think it could happen in the realm of, I don't think anybody hates anybody. I don't think Patrick would not want to come back here. And I don't think the Jets wouldn't want a Patrick Laine on the right wing. But everything else has to come into place. And what's the cost? What's the deal? How much salary? All that kind of stuff has to play into it. But they're in win now mode. So if you get a fully healthy, fully able to compete and play Patrick Laine and put up points, why wouldn't you look at it?
If Patrick Laine was traded for Nikolai Ehlers, I think Jets fans would be so confused whether, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many Ehlers fans in the city, right? But then there'd be so much joy of Laine coming back to Winnipeg. Yeah, it would be the Spider-Man gif,
PlayStation
shooting webs at each other. Yeah, exactly.
Passing each other on different flights.
And you know what? Somebody that I work with at Hockey Manitoba brought something up, like maybe acquiring Patrick Laine keeps Nick Ehlers here and he wants to sign an extension, right? Like, I mean, now we're really going down the rabbit hole here.
You're playing 3D chess there, Ginsburg.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know how to play chess. I only know how to play checkers, Drew.
Yeah. But on that edge, I don't know that Nick Ehlers doesn't want to be here. I've heard some.
I'm starting to change my mind on that. I'm starting to think that he's going to sign an extension, and it's going to be like a repeat of last year, Jim, when Scheifele and Hellebuck signed those twin deals and nobody saw it coming.
Well, I don't know about an extension because here's the thing. Nick could probably get 7.5 somewhere, and that doesn't fit in my books. You got to sign a center to Foley, hopefully, probably around $5 million.
You mean Monahan?
Not Monahan. You got to
before the trolls start jumping at you.
Foley can play center, Drew. It's not that hard. Just learn how to play center.
I'm pretty sure, even though he's still a member of the Jets, I'm pretty sure Toffoli's already signed in LA.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too. I think what was the Dreger who put out yesterday on Toronto radio that 75 to 90% of the free agents know where they're going already. Like everybody knows Stamkos is going to Detroit or something. So, but I think that, like, here's the thing about Nick is there's just as much as everything else, whether it's playoff performance, whether it's another 60-point year, whether it's some inconsistencies and then a 10-game span where it's just a plethora of points, whether they want to get tough or whatever. I think they're willing to move him mostly because of that. And probably a really, really close second is the contract. 2 years from now, Kyle Connor's up. Josh Morrissey is up in 3, I think. Hellebuck, Scheifele are here. Lowry's going to come up, but I think they can make that work. Nick is probably worth or want 7.5, and I don't see that fitting. You've got Gabe Vilardi coming up after next year, and if he's healthy this year, he was on pace for 70-some, right? He scores 30 goals, and he's younger. So as much as I think they would like a different look in the top 6 from what Nick has offered, I think they'd be more than happy to keep him. But again, if Nick wants to sign an extension, it would shock me if they extended him at $7 million going forward. It would shock me if Nick signed an extension for 6 or less. So that's where I think what's lost in the conversation of what Nick Ehlers brings to the team, what kind of a player he is, and why they may look for a change there is it's the contract. It's the Andrew Kopp, right? Like They would have loved to have kept Andrew Kopp, but I've always said what the cap does is it weeds out one player everybody really wants to keep. Every team has one player they'd really like to keep in a cap world, and that just goes to the wayside. And you don't have to look further than Stamkos in Tampa Bay and other places where there's just one player under a cap that eventually just doesn't fit. And I think that's Nick.
Jimmy, they talked about buyouts and whether guys like, Nate Schmidt and Neil Pionk could be bought out. Weber said yesterday on WST didn't think that was going to be, that those were really options for the Winnipeg Jets. But if you don't buy out some of these guys and again, there's big questions as to whether the Jets will continue to try and augment their right side and maybe shift everyone down a space. But if that's the case, does that not kind of lead you to believe that they're not going to have the money to re-sign Sean Monahan, which would give an avenue at least potentially to someone like Brad Lambert to play up the middle, or Gabriel Vilardi to play up the middle, who we know likes playing center, potentially Cole Perfetti, because Rick Bowness didn't think Cole Perfetti was going to be a center, and we know he had the wrist injury last year, which is why they kept him from taking faceoffs. But do you think that if the Jets are not going to go the route of buyouts, which it seems like I said that they're not going to do, then they really have to kind of I guess the problem is all these questions are all tied into what might happen, right? Like if they try and get a better top pairing right side defenseman and shift everybody down, well, then you're going to have too much cap space, and it'll preclude you from signing a Monahan. But if that happens and they do keep these guys and they don't choose the buyout option, do you see that opening up that avenue for like a Lambert or one of those other guys I mentioned to move over to the middle?
I do. I think they want Cole Perfetti to be a center. They started the year there with him last year, and it didn't work out. But again, it didn't work out because they're win now, right? They're in a win now scenario. 3 years ago, I think he plays center for 50 games, and they just deal with it. Now, you mentioned the injury, fair enough. I think everything's on the table because they're in win now mode. I think if a guy comes in like Lambert and does well, he will be on the team. I've never believed this is an organization that's like Ville Heinola is a prime example. If Ville Heinola could help them win games, there's not a board meeting going on, I don't like youth and I don't like kids and, what are we going to do with Ville, blah, blah. There's a board meeting of like, can Ville help us? And if he can't, look, I think Rutger McGroarty would have been in the lineup last year if they could have helped us. But I'm looking at a team going an 8-game winning streak, including a shutout of Dallas and handing it to Colorado. And I'm like, I think our lineup's pretty good right now. Thanks anyway. Because we're wanting to win the Stanley Cup. So I think there is room for youth, but they just have to show it, right? But I do think they want Cole Perfetti as a center. I don't think they're going to buy anybody out. That's where I think if Rutger has to go, and again, I don't think they want to let Rutger go. And I'm not a fan of the team, as you guys know, but I'm kind of sad. Rutger wants out. I really like this kid, and I really like the
Me
way he
too.
plays and his style and everything else. But if he's going to go, there's an avenue there. Who wants Rutger? Take Nate Schmidt. Like that's part of the
Sure.
package, right? And so Rutger's got to go. And it doesn't have to be for a top 6 guy. Give me a 5-6D guy that can take Schmidt's place. I'll give you Rutger, and you take Nate Schmidt from me, and take his 5.9. And all of a sudden, I've got a 5-6 guy making 2 instead of 5.9. And I think there's options.
And sorry,
there.
Jim, I was going to say it's not like Nate Schmidt. Like he's a serviceable defenseman.
He had a great season
Nate Schmidt.
last year.
Exactly. He was when he played with Dylan Sandberg. Dave's going to roll his eyes. Just kidding. But like I was gushing about Sandberg and Schmidt and then all the advanced stats came out and saying that they were such a great pair. So if I've always said, Jim, if Schmidt was making $3 million a year, everybody's happy with Nate Schmidt. Nobody's talking about, and obviously that's Captain Obvious speaking, but the fact the guy makes $5.8 million, is he going to be bought out and everything like that? I mean, I personally think whether it's Schmidt or Pionk, trading him makes a lot more sense than just spending millions of dollars for him to not be on the team. I never thought either of those guys were a buyout candidate.
I don't think either of them are a buyout candidate. I think the Jets hate buying players out. I think they did it to help Blake Wheeler and help their team. And I think with Mark Stewart, it was just a necessity. But I don't think they're anywhere near those points with the 2 players in their history they've bought out with these 2. I know when we talk like this, I thought Nate Schmidt had one of his best seasons. And let's not forget, he came into a playoff game and was the Jets' best player. He went into a game in Colorado after sitting and was the team's best player. Now, I don't mean overall but for the minutes he played and the point he got, he was great. And that's why they didn't move him last year, right? For everybody who said, get rid of him, come playoff time when they needed a veteran defenseman, which is the biggest commodity you can get at the trade deadline anyway, he came into the lineup and contributed and played well. So I'm not knocking Nate. It's his contract. And I got a cousin who's a Vancouver Canuck fan, and he couldn't get rid of Tyler Myers fast enough. Tyler Myers resigns for $3 million, and he's like, I don't mind this. Like it like
all
that's
depends
what
on
it
the
is,
role
right?
Yeah.
It's the contract. And I think if Nate Schmidt was making 2.5, 3, they would re-up him for 2 years or something like that. But it is what it is, and that's how the cap works. And I don't think there's any ill will towards Nate. Also, like Billy made the team, right, at training camp. And so I think it's also a thing for Nate. Like this isn't just dumping his salary. It's Nate at your age. Would you like to play every day? Yes, I would. Do I want to win a Stanley Cup? Yeah, that's up to him, right? Like I'll stay here, blah, blah, blah. But if they could move him to a San Jose where he's going to play every single night and probably 20 minutes, that's, a good thing for him as well. So I don't think they're going to buy anybody out. And I think there's maneuvers to make here. There, Dave, and you know better than anybody, there are some players that, I've heard everything, even from you, Dave, that Brad Lambert, needs a little bit more work on his defensive game, but his overall, all-round offensive game is NHL ready. So he's a guy that I think can go to the Moose in 20 games. There's an injury, come up and never look back like a Kyle Connor did. But what my point to that is, there's some options with the Moose. There's some options with Logan Stanley. There's some options with Rutger McGroarty. There's some options with, you're not going to trade Nick Ehlers and Nate Schmidt in the same deal. That's $12 million you're bringing in. But you could very easily go, here's Rutger McGroarty, here's Nate Schmidt, give me a 4-5 defenseman, or give me a third line player that I'm going to play on my fourth line, and he'll be even better because he's not playing on the third or the second. And there's deals there, and the win is this. That's the other reason I think it's 50-50 Nick Ehlers is here next year, guys, because the win would be the cap space. You bring him back, you have another run at the Stanley Cup, whatever happens in the playoffs, and if he walks in free agency, the win is the $6 million in cap space for Gabe Vilardi, for Kyle Connor extension, whatever you want to do. And let's be honest, finally, Kevin Cheveldayoff is a magician.
Escape artist. That's what Huss calls him, an escape artist.
It goes right back to the Evander Kane situation and how well he made out there, to the Pierre-Luc Dubois thing last year. And in between this is the other ones that we always sit here and go, you don't need a rider. And we sit here and we go, all you did at the deadline was bring in Nemestikov, and there's probably something going that none of us have thought about that could sort of go, not only did they get cap space, but they got a little deeper. And lost in this conversation is Rasmus Kupari. I mean, there's a center, right? And I think he's still developing, but that's another guy you could throw in an Nate Schmidt deal and go, we see Cole Perfetti as a center. We re-signed Sean Monahan. Here's Kupari and Nate Schmidt, and both of you get to play more.
It's
Rasmus Kupari's family thanks you for bringing him up, because I think a lot of Jets fans forgot about him.
Well, and when I say all these guys, like Nate Schmidt, Kupari, I don't know Kupari at all, but Nate Schmidt, all these guys, they're really good guys. Like, I'm not saying that they need to move because they suck. I'm saying that you gotta win. Like, this is a team that no matter what, it's win now, and it's win now for the next 2 years. And if you can re-sign Gabe Velarde and Kyle Connor, then maybe even longer than that. But with Hellebuck and Scheifele would not have signed extensions if they didn't feel that that's what this team's going to do. So to trade Rutger McGorty for a top 5 pick and hope he's in the NHL in the next 2 to 3 years isn't what this team's about. That's why when it got out of the top 10, I'm like, he will be dealt for a player that will play in this roster next year. And if not, he can enjoy another year at Michigan.
Jim Toth with 680 CJOB. There will be coverage all week long, of course, of free agency, which starts Monday, and day 2 of the draft, which starts in about 20 minutes. Jimmy, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time and insight as always, buddy.
As Kramer always said, gentlemen,
karate,
awesome
and broadcasting knows no age. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Jimmy. Take care.
Happy Canada Day, everybody.
You too. There he goes, Jim Toth, joining us this morning for a great conversation. We'll come back.
I want that mug that Jim has. That was a nice one.
That is a good Kramer cup. Anytime you can bring Kramer onto the program in mug form, then you're doing a good job.
Giddy up.
20 minutes before day 2 of the draft begins. Much more Jets talk to come. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on this Saturday morning.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
The game can change just like that. Accidents happen when you aren't protected. So now what? Getting to your injury quickly can make all the difference. Help prevent them from being game changers with Linden Market Dental Center. Bonding, crowns, bridges, and dental implants. State-of-the-art treatments are available to help you get back in the game. To learn more, visit lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
It's all over, folks, and the run has come to an end.
You'll be so far away.
A Canadian team hasn't won the Cup in over 30 years. And the Cup will stay south of the border. Maybe it's time we try something different. This playoff season, let's cheer with the fans we've always cheered against. Team up for the Cup at Boston Pizza.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake. After a great game or great deal, it shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at ZappiaGroup.com.
Big thanks to Jim Toth for joining us this morning on the program. Always insightful, always opinionated. Love having Jim on the show. As I mentioned, bottom of the hour is when day 2 of the NHL draft is going to commence from the Sphere in Vegas. The Jets will be picking 5th in the second round, number 37 overall, a pick they acquired from the Montreal Canadiens in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. So I believe that will that trade tree come to an end for the Jets, I guess, after today? Might. I can't figure out.
Well,
those
it's
trees
funny though,
anyways.
Drew. You know, we were talking to Jim about Rasmus Kupari. Jim brought
Yeah.
up Kupari
There
as
you go.
somebody
He's
who
in the
might be
trade too.
thrown into a trade, right?
Yeah.
And you just the more and more time that passes, the better that trade looks for the Jets, right? Like, I mean, who thought Pierre-Luc Dubois would be on his fourth team, right, Dave? Like, we were there in Buffalo when he was drafted 3rd overall. I mean, for that matter, who thought Laine would be on his possible 3rd team at this point in his career, right? But I mean, Kupari is a guy who essentially, guys, was like the Jets' 14th, 15th forward, right? And I think, you know, just to kind of bring this back full circle to Rutger McGroarty, that's why I really think that all of this talk that somehow the Jets mismanaged McGroarty, I think is ridiculous, because to think that McGroarty was going to leapfrog over Cole Perfetti and he was going to leapfrog over David Gustafsson and he was going to leapfrog over Rasmus Kupari and go right into a top 6 role for the Jets in the first round. Like, put it this way. Do you think Rutger McGroarty would have changed what happened against the Colorado Avalanche?
No.
The way McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, and Nichushkin were playing in that first round,
Yeah.
I think throwing McGroarty into that situation, like, people were Dave comparing Cale Makar, because if you remember, Makar stepped right after he was done with what was it, UMass? Was it UMass that he played for? Whoever he played for in college, he stepped right in to the NHL. Rutger McGroarty is not Cale Makar, guys. Cale Makar is a generational defenseman. So, look, I'm upset that McGroarty's not going to be a Winnipeg Jet, it looks like. But just to think that he was going to step right into the lineup and, you know, score 10 goals in the playoffs, I think is short-sighted, Dave.
Yeah, I do as well. And I've said this on last night's show. I don't believe the hype. I think that there's something that is not being said. This just doesn't smell right.
Hold on. That's copyrighted to Public Enemy, Dave.
Okay, well,
That's trademarked to Public Enemy. Don't believe the hype.
Wow. Keep going.
Don't
Come
believe
on.
the hype.
Freestyle, Ginsburg. Keep it going.
Yeah, I can freestyle. No, continue on, Dave. But that's a great song. I mean, that's a great.
Well, I'm surprised that Drew's not at the
we are the
concert
cult
right
of personality. I
Yeah.
would say, you know.
Yeah. Oh man,
Anywho.
another good one.
So I'm on the train that something just not something doesn't smell right in this McGroarty situation. I don't conventional wisdom is what you're hearing out there. I don't see that this is a player who is demanding a guaranteed spot in the NHL. I know that's out. I just don't buy it. It just doesn't come across.
Hang on. Then what do you think it is? If you don't, I mean,
I don't know enough to say specifically, and I don't want to say. I mean, I just the winds that I'm sniffing something. It just doesn't smell right, and I just don't see it. I don't see a guy who, again, his.
That was actually just me. I'm in your main level.
I thought I smelt that as.
Sorry, I haven't put any deodorant
wafting
on
up.
this morning. Yeah,
I'm just telling you, like I don't see a guy where his skating was his issue, saying I demand a spot in the NHL. It just seems like, you know, it just doesn't seem right. It clashes. Everything clashes with what we've been told. So the idea that somehow, you know, again, and I understand that both sides aren't really saying anything, but I've just been, I'm more on the train that there's something else afoot. I think it'll come out later, but I don't know yet. But I'm just saying, I'm not inclined to just believe whole hog what's out there that his side was demanding a guaranteed spot in the NHL on the roster. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I can tell you one thing I've heard that just to put this at odds, it has nothing to do with playing in Winnipeg. So what I've heard is it has nothing to do with playing with his not wanting to play for the Winnipeg Jets. So,
well, then what's possibly left? The only other possibility seems to be opportunity, right?
yeah, well, I mean, or clash of personality. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, and again, it could be something, but I know that from what I've been told, it has nothing to do with playing in Winnipeg. I know some folks were saying, well, he doesn't want to play in Winnipeg. That's not what I've heard that it is. So it has nothing to do with wearing.
what do you mean
Winnipeg
by
Jets
clash
uniform.
of personality, Dave?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it just like maybe it could be the role, it could be opportunity, but I'm just saying that I don't think it's as much. Like, I don't know. It just seems like there's such a disconnect from what we heard like 2 months ago.
Yep.
Right. Because you got to remember, like, it wasn't like it was like he was going to say, oh, well, hey, I need to be this. Like, he was the guy who was saying the Jets have given me plenty of time and space. I'm just saying that it's a complete 180 from everything that was told And now suddenly it's a completely different story. And it just seems like you could say, sure, he demanded an opportunity to play. It seems unlikely. And remember, I said this last night, the whole idea of the Jets being draft, develop, and destroy, it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, look at the Moose centers last year. Danny Zhilkin, third rounder from 2022. Brad Lambert, first rounder from 2022. And Chaz Lucius, a first rounder from 2021. But they were two 19-year-olds and a 20-year-old. Like, you're not going to win many pro hockey games with three centers that young. The organization made a decision. Okay, we're not going to win. We'll surround them with good talent. They'll develop. My point is, it just doesn't make sense from an organizational perspective that you have these guys who you would have given opportunity to. And I'm just saying, like, maybe it's he didn't want to play for the Moose. Maybe he'd rather play for Michigan. But I don't know. Just something just seems off to me. And again, like, I'm not a conspiracy theory. Let's put a theorist.
No, there's something
Where's your
definitely
tinfoil?
off. No, there's something definitely off because when you sent us the link to the 32 Thoughts podcast right before the show last week, Dave, nobody saw that coming. And yeah, now you can kind of connect the dots. Okay, he's good buddies with Cutter Gauthier. And the thing is, Dave, there's a difference between, I'm not saying that you don't know this, but demanding a trade, or pardon me, demanding playing time and wanting playing time. Yeah, obviously, he wanted playing time. We have no idea, what the conversations were between McGroarty's camp and the Jets camp. We just don't know. I mean, Mike McIntyre's been all over it and he's been reporting, but it's not like anybody has the secret tape recordings of the conversations between, like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't Watergate. We're not going to find out exactly where the exact breakdown was between McGroarty's camp and the Jets. But you're right, Dave. Like, going back to what Drew said last week, McGroarty and Barlow, I mean, they were holding hands, skipping around development camp, and everything was hunky-dory. And you could literally see the Jets' future 2, 3, 4 years down the road of Rucker McGroarty, Colby Barlow. I mean, you throw in Elias Salamonson, Brad Lambert, right, Dave? Yeah. You know all the guys that you follow the Moose more than anybody, right? So something happened for sure. And regardless if it was, look, I think Drew made a really good point about college players and their entitlement these days. I think college players nowadays feel more entitled than they did 5 to 10 years ago.
I don't think that entitled is necessarily the right word. I think they have options.
No,
they have options. They have leverage.
Mandel says entitled.
No. Yep. They have leverage that CHL players don't have.
Yep.
If you're a U.S. college player, you can stay in college and get paid real money through name, image, and likeness, NIL. It allows them to be paid as, not, under professional terms, but not that far off. Now, of course, the money in football and basketball is way more than it is in any of the other college sports, but it's at least still an option for Rutger McGroarty and other U.S. college players to line their pockets so that they can say to a team that has drafted them, yes, you still have a lot of leverage, but you don't have all the leverage like you do with a CHL player where they're basically, when was the last time you heard of a CHL player get drafted and not go to the team? Eric Lindros would be the one that immediately comes to mind. And that was so many years ago. And that had to do with Quebec City and that the Nordiques franchise was a bit of a disaster at that point. And the Lindros family was a bit, I'll call it charitably high maintenance. So there were different, elements at play there. But
how funny was it, by the way, that he was traded for Peter Forsberg, who went on to have a Hall of Fame career? Right?
Of course. I mean, that trade, is legendary. Of course,
Kerry Huffman was involved there. Gary Lawless's buddy, Kerry Huffman.
Sure. I mean, look, we know that trade, how it helped the then Avalanche become a Stanley Cup champion a few years after the trade went down. But U.S. college players, to my point, have more options now, and they can use a little bit of that leverage. So it's incumbent on the Jets and all teams, so not specific to the Jets in this case, but all teams in the NHL, to know that this is something that they have to take into account when you draft players that are earmarked for U.S. college or USHL players who often go to U.S. college programs. They do have that leverage, and I would not be surprised, by the way, that come the next CBA negotiation, that that isn't some part of the negotiation where that wait 3 years or and then you become a UFA that US college players can do. I wouldn't be surprised if that loophole gets closed in the next CBA negotiations.
Okay, keep that thought, Drew, and I want to talk about this. Can I just read what Eric Lindros got back in '92 in return for the? Hold on, just listen to this return.
It was 30 years ago.
Okay, hold on, but just listen to this return. Okay, Eric Lindros was traded in 1992 for Peter Forsberg, who we mentioned, Ron Hextall, Mike Ricci, Kerry Huffman, Steve Duchesne, Chris Simon, a '93 first-round pick, which became Jocelyn Thibault, a '94 first rounder.
And remember, what did Thibault turn into?
A goalie?
Patrick Waugh.
Oh, sorry, Patrick Waugh. Dave will like this one. One of those draft picks turned into Nolan Baumgartner. Okay, and that's not it, Drew. And $15 million in cash, which is like the equivalent, like that would be double that nowadays. Like that's what Eric Lindros got. Like that. I'm just sorry. I don't think that's talked about enough, guys, about how mammoth of trade that was.
It was 30 years ago, Ezzy. It was talked about a lot. It's just been 30 years is the problem.
Okay, sure. Yes, we're old. I get it. But yeah, going back to what you said, Drew, about the new CBA and college players and, the advantages they have that Canadian Hockey League players don't have, maybe that's going to make some teams think differently. I have no idea.
Well, let's ask you that. Should that make a team like given the Winnipeg Jets draft history, with taking players oftentimes from the United States national team development program and USHL products and players who've gone on to play college hockey, should that change the Jets' philosophy? Should the Jets try to avoid the scenario that they're currently in with Rutger McGroarty, the same scenario that they were going to be in with the, I forget his name right off the top of my head, the kid they drafted in the 3rd round who got traded. Nathan Smith, the kid who got traded to Phoenix or Arizona in the Brian Little deal because he wasn't going to sign with the Jets. And people were upset about that at the time. He's about to become a Group 6 UFA, so his career is
he's played all of 14 games and scored 2 goals and 2 assists.
Right, so his career is not anything to write home about. So that didn't end up biting the Jets in the behind or anything. But should that change philosophies when it comes to the draft? Day 2 of the draft, 6 minutes from now. Do you think that people are reconsidering their approach given the leverage that certain players might have, Dave?
It's a fair question.
Look, I think if all things are equal from a Winnipeg perspective, I mean, let's be realistic. The Jets have college guys that they've signed and have been, Andrew Kopp is a college guy who would have signed. They couldn't afford it, but they would have signed. He would have signed in Winnipeg. Kyle Connor signed a long extension. Jack Roswick, Hellebuck, you've got the guys, who played college and signed here and have no problems. Chaz Lucius loves playing in Winnipeg. Like I've talked to him, obviously he's had some injury issues and he's a young guy. So I'm not willing to just say that guys who play college are not, especially if they're the best player available, are necessarily guys that, are ones you're going to shy away from. Having said that, if all things are equal and you have 2 equal things on the scale, if you're going to tell me that if you're and again, just because a guy's from the prairie doesn't mean he wants to stay on the prairies for his whole career.
Right.
But I would suggest that, you're better off picking a kid from the WHL who's from somewhere in Western Canada, most likely, and maybe grew up a Jets fan, because now we've got a whole generation now of kids, right? The Jets have been back for 13 years. So you got a whole generation of kids when they were young. Now they're, I'm a Jets fan. I idolize Mark Scheifele. 5-10 years ago, you didn't have that. But now you have
that's
that.
sort of hard to believe. That's been 13 years, but you're right about that. That some of these kids who are getting drafted
we're
now,
that old, Drew. We're that old.
We're 4, 5, 6 years old.
That's my whole point.
They grew up with the Jets.
That's right, and that's all they know. And so it's an interesting philosophy. But again, like I said, I look at it and I think that also doesn't hurt to have local flavor, because look, as much as we like Cole Perfetti, I still can't believe the Jets didn't draft Seth Jarvis. And I think I'm going to be talking about this one as he probably for the next 10 years. But Seth Jarvis from Winnipeg.
I find it funny how everybody does that, though. Like everybody.
No. I'm not saying. Look, I'm not saying. Oh, you could have had. This is not like one of those situations where you could have had Wyatt Johnston, for free, 4 rounds later or whatever it was. I'm not saying that, but I mean, Seth Jarvis was right there, right, and from Winnipeg. And I just think
the Jets could have had Connor Geekie and Denton Matejchuk if they weren't taken right before.
For sure,
McGroarty, right?
Yeah, but Jarvis was taken after Perfetti, right?
I'm just saying you could play the what if game of what if the Jets got this guy? What if?
Sure. I'm just saying, ultimately, if you look at your options, I just think that the Jets are served better by, look at the WHL guys they've had, and Adam Lowry, Josh Morrissey. Doesn't always work out. I'm just saying that it
Good
wouldn't
Alberta
hurt
boys.
them. Yeah, I'm just saying that it wouldn't hurt them to look at that. But I mean, the truth is also, again, like you said, you've got Swedish guys, you got Finnish guys. They're all willing to stay in Winnipeg. Guys ultimately want to win. That's really what I think it matters. I think if you have a winning culture, it doesn't matter. Look at Edmonton, right? Like Edmonton and Winnipeg are pretty similar in terms of cities and all that stuff. Edmonton, I don't think, is on very many no trade lists anymore. You know why? Because you got Connor McDavid, you got Leon Draisaitl. So the reality for folks, and they just went to the Stanley Cup Finals. So the problem is that the guys are going to want to stay there. Guys are going to want to establish themselves in these markets if there's a winning culture there. So yeah, does Winnipeg compare to any of the southern U.S. cities when it comes to environment or taxes, or weather, I should say, in taxes? Probably not. But I just think, like, ultimately, if you have a winning culture, a winning team, it doesn't matter where a guy's from. But if all things are equal, I would say you go with the guys from the WHL versus anywhere else.
Round 2 set to begin at the NHL draft. We'll go to break. When we come back, a trade to tell you about. Doesn't involve the Jets, but a trade to tell you about nonetheless. And round 2 will begin when we return.
Hopefully
Much
you guys
more to
haven't
come.
traded me. I'll, be a little bit upset about that if I've been traded, because
you're still around.
I've set down roots here with illegal.
As you're going to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Sorry, we forgot to tell you.
Much more to come. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning. 10:30 in the morning. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, round 2 of the NHL draft at the Sphere in Las Vegas, set to begin momentarily. As I teased before we went to break, there has been a trade. It does not involve the Winnipeg Jets. It's really not that exciting, but there's only so much I got to work with here, so I have to make it out to be more than it really is. The Buffalo Sabres have acquired pending restricted free agent Beck Malenston from the Washington Capitals in exchange for the 43rd overall pick, which is a second-round pick in this year's NHL draft. So RFA Beck Malenston, who is, I believe, 26 years old, played 81 games for the Capitals last year, put up 21 points, is on his way to Buffalo in exchange for a second-round pick. Yes, Spency, exactly right. LOL, a banger of a trade if there ever was one.
Well, you know who would like that trade is Brett the Hitman Hart, because speaking of the Western Hockey League, he played for the Calgary Hitmen. So we were talking about the Jets. Look, and going back to that conversation, I would love the Jets. I think the WHL is the best league in the world. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. I work at Hockey Manitoba.
Yeah,
but I mean,
biased.
look
The
at
OHL wins every year, the Mem Cup.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, but I'm talking about more like the players that come out of that league. And the thing is, when you look at what happened in the first round, right? Like Berkeley Catton was a player that I really liked, and I think that's a really good pick by the Kraken. Or Carter Yakemchuk, who went to the Ottawa Senators. He played in the Western Hockey League. Or Tisha Ginla, guys. We talked about it with Jimmy Toth. Tisha Ginla, I think Flames fans were, pretty upset that he didn't, fall to them at 9th overall. But Tisha Ginla, Kelowna Rockets, of course. So, anyways, Beck Yalinshin, that's obviously not a Malinston. Sorry, that's not a huge trade. But look, again, it involves the Washington Capitals, guys. Like, you got to give it to the Capitals that they're being active, and again, as long as you have Alex Ovechkin chasing the Gretzky record, you're going to be trying to win. I mean, you might as well look. The Capitals 4 or 5 years from now are going to stink bad, so you might as well go for it now and bring in these veterans like Dubois and Andrew Mangiapane.
Doesn't that strike you, Dave, as a lot to pay? A second-round pick for a 26-year-old winger who's got career highs of 20 points in the NHL.
Well, look at what the Wings did with Jake Wallman, right? And which is weird.
That was a salary dump. I mean, that was
I know, but they had to attach, the sweetener, right? So,
right.
And the funny part is there were reports after the fact that teams would have picked up Wallman for off of waivers. So, I mean, it's just interesting to see that was the case with some teams. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting world we live in, Drew. And sometimes, guys, you pay a price and your other teams kind of are scratching their head. They're going, well, that's unusual. I didn't think it would cost that. But yeah, I mean, obviously these guys are all together. They're in the room having those conversations, as Kevin Cheveldayoff likes to talk about. And I mean, that's the price of doing business sometimes.
Boys, just quickly before we get back to the second round of the draft, I know we were talking about how just thinking about Iginla's kid being drafted makes you feel old. What about the fact that, I don't know if you saw this, today's the anniversary of the Devils trading Adam Larson for Taylor Hall. That was 8 years ago.
Wow.
Wow. And Adam Larson's name has been, bandied about, in some thought that maybe Ehlers for Larson would be something that the Jets would be interested in, when it seemed like more likely that Nikolai Ehlers was potentially going to be traded. Obviously, that hasn't come to fruition or anything along those lines. But, that certainly. Anyway, certainly food for thought and how quickly time flies. The San Jose Sharks are on the clock when it comes to round 2 of the NHL draft. The Jets and their trade goes via Montreal, Utah, and the Kings back to Winnipeg. So it's that round 2 pick has certainly traveled a lot. The Jets will be up 5 picks from now in making their first selection at the 2024 draft, with that coming up in Vegas with the draft taking place.
Yeah, and
So
if you want, Drew, I have a few guys if you want to go into this now.
You do. Admittedly, you know more about these guys than I would. So just throw out some names and some tidbits about who you might think the Jets are going to be.
Let's get the chat involved as well. If you have some suggestions, if you want who you want to see get picked by the Jets in the 37th overall spot. I know some folks have been saying it. So Ez is going to give you his thoughts, and we'll get yours up on the screen as well. If you can let us know who you think the Jets should draft 37th overall.
And Dave and Drew, I gotta admit, everybody going back to the radio days, we used to go to the drafts and we used to cover it much more in depth when we had 2 shows a week. So I don't know these prospects as much as I used to.
And also the Jets don't have a first round pick. So when you don't have a first round pick, by default, your interest in the draft sort of wanes a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of the information I'm getting is from Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff, a good friend of the show, or I'm getting it from Chris Peters, or I'm getting it for Craig Button or Sam Cosentino. So we got a Cam Robinson with Elite Prospects. I'm a subscriber to Elite Prospects. So I'm getting a lot of this information from them. So granted, I haven't seen a lot of these guys play, but a few guys that Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff had left on the draft board, going back to the WHL, a guy that played for the Brandon Wheat Kings, not a Manitoban, from Calgary, Alberta. Charlie Ellick, a right shot defenseman, had 27 points in 65 games for the Wheat Kings.
Big boy he is.
Yeah, big boy, 6'3", 200 plus pounds. So right shot defenseman, Charlie Ellick is a guy to look out for. Another guy from the Western Hockey League, Andrew Basha. He's a left winger, had 85 points in 63 games for Medicine Hat. He's a guy that I don't think anybody's projecting him to be a first-line NHLer, but kind of like a middle forward. Another guy I thought that was really interesting, and this goes back to our conversation about drafting players from the U.S. National Development Program, Cole Hudson. Many people will know that name. Lane Hudson is a defenseman who's a draft pick of the Montreal Canadiens, a second rounder. A lot of people thought he should have been a first rounder. Cole Hudson plays for the new U.S. National Development Program.
While you keep going here, Igor Chernyshov was San Jose's selection at number 33 overall. So the Carolina Hurricanes are now on the clock, but San Jose goes to Russia to take a left winger by the name of Igor Chernyshov, who played for Dynamo Moscow. 6'3", 204 pounds. So a big winger going to San Jose.
Yeah, and so we only have 4 picks now until the Jets go. Yeah. And so back to Cole Hudson. He's like a smaller defenseman, shoots left, had 12 points in 19 games for the U.S. National Development Program. I'm not sure. I'd have to look up. I'm assuming he's going to play college next year, because that's usually the path, right? You play for the U.S. National Development Program or another team in the USHL, and then you go play college. So Cole Hudson, son of Lane Hudson, that's another guy to look out for. Henry Muse is an interesting one. I'm sure Drew's seen this guy because he played, he's from Ottawa, and I forget if he played for the Ottawa 67s, just pulling it up right now. Ottawa 67s from Ottawa. He had a monster year in the the Ontario Hockey League with the 67s, 61 points, including 15 goals. Let me try that again. 15 goals, 61 points for the Ottawa 67s last year. He's not the biggest defenseman, but right shot, 6 feet. So again, these are some guys that caught my eye in terms of, look, the Jets are not as deep in their prospect pool when it comes to defensemen, right? We know Elias Salomonson's there. I don't know if we're still calling Ville Heinola a prospect at this point. He's 23 years old.
Well, we're calling him, the Jets are counting on him to be a bit of an NHL regular on the left side next year.
Yeah, so Henry Muse, defenseman Cole Hudson, Charlie Ellick, another guy
Dominic Badinka, the Carolina Hurricanes have just selected him. Plays in Sweden from Czechia, pardon me. He goes as a defenseman again, 6'3", 185. So the Jets are 3 picks away. Anaheim on the clock, then Columbus, then the Jets with their second round selection.
I want to throw out one guy. I threw out a bunch of defensemen there. Hudson, Henry Muse, Charlie Ellick on the Brandon Wheat Kings. I wanted to throw out another guy, mainly because not only does he share my dad's name, John, but he's going to be a member of the all-food team, possibly the best name in the draft. John Mustard is another guy to look out for, and that's because, as you guys know, that's my condiment of choice on my hot dogs is mustard. But
naturally,
John Mustard is an interesting one, Dave, because at the beginning of the year, he was kind
Henry
of
Ketchup.
Yeah, exactly. But John Mustard played for
I'm
Waterloo.
relishing this segment.
It's very good, Drew. He's an Ontario kid. He played in the USHL, but he's not American, and he's got good size. And he's not viewed as like again. These aren't going to be first line forwards in the NHL.
The Jets are on the clock. Charlie Ellick was just selected by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and
see, Drew, that was a good thing I brought him up because he was taken right before. So we'll see. Maybe the Jets go with John Mustard here.
And before Ellick went, Lucas Pettersson went to the Anaheim Ducks. So the Winnipeg Jets are
on the clock
right now as they make their first selection in the 2024
And I get ready to hit the Elite
draft.
Prospects update. Who
There
is this guy?
And find out what you can about the various players, but the Jets are on the clock. We are updating you right now. So that Ellick was a lot of people who had their eye on him as potentially going to the Winnipeg Jets, but scooped just ahead by the Winnipeg Jets have selected from Sweden Alphonse Frage, 6'1", 197-pound defenseman. Alphonse Frage, he played for Vaxjo, the junior team in Sweden last year. So that's where the Winnipeg Jets have gone, is back to, they kept a defenseman. That's where they needed to go, as a lot of people thought that was where they're weakest in the prospect pool. But they head to
He's a left shot. He's a left shot defenseman, Drew.
Right, a left shot defenseman out of Sweden is where the Winnipeg Jets go. Decent height, 6'1". He put up 33 points in 40 games for the junior program last year. I'll be honest, folks. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to BS you. We're going to rely on our experts that we tap into for more insight.
So hold on, Drew. You're
Alphonse
saying
Frage.
that you're not tight with the Alphonse Frage family? Because I could have sworn that, just this gives me an opportunity to go back to 2017. Sorry, I'm being the nostalgic emoticon from Inside Out 2 right now. But back in the draft when the Jets took Arvid Holm, Paulie Edmonds, Huss, and I couldn't find anything on Arvid Holm. So basically we were just making things up. Like, he's a goalie. He's from Sweden. He's good. But Alphonse Frage, Dave M. and I will dig up some more information. But you're right. Wanted to throw out one thing about Alphonse Frage. He was ranked 28th overall on the consolidated rankings by Elite Prospects. He was ranked 37th by Craig Button, 41st by Bob McKenzie in his rankings. So if you base it on that, guys, he went right around where he should. Like, he could have been a first rounder, Dave, but it seems this is kind of right around where he was supposed to go high in the second round. So we'll dig up a little bit more information
So
on
here's
him.
what Elite Prospects have to say, what they refer to as the elevator pitch, when you have to describe a player in only 15 seconds. One of the draft's most active players and best lateral movers, capable of incredible escapes from the point. Boy, I wonder if the Winnipeg Jets currently have a left-handed defenseman who's really adept at walking the point and escaping from situations where it looks like he's got no chance. Of course, I'm referring to Josh Morrissey. If Alphonse Frage turns anything into a Josh Morrissey, the Winnipeg Jets would be very thankful for that. He's a decent skater, decent hockey sense, sort of right in the middle, like you said, of a second round pick, a guy who's got things to work on, but at the same time has some tantalizing upside that would be of interest to any team drafting him. So as you mentioned, right sort of in that sweet spot of where the draft experts thought he would go.
Yeah, and just looking at some scouting reports here quickly, you touched on it, Drew. More of an offensive minded defenseman, and just looking at a scouting report saying that he has the ability to elude opposing defenders, but sometimes he's a little bit too offensive minded. But said though the scouting report I read said that he was an elite skater, one of the better skaters in the draft, but obviously more of a puck moving defenseman and kind of that traditional size, right? Like a lot of people will, it's easy to look at a guy who's 6'6", right? Or a guy that's 5'10" and say he's undersized or bigger, right? But, he's exactly kind of right around, that Josh Morrissey size, right? So, we'll learn more about him. Maybe we can get him on. I'm not sure, if we're going to be able to get him on, but if we don't get him on today for you, I'm sure we'll, get some audio from him in due time for Jets fans. But, always exciting to have a player that now Jets fans can look at and learn more about. And that's what I like the most about the draft, right, guys, is that, it provides optimism, and it's, just a new player for Jets fans to learn about, and a great name. I got to be honest.
It certainly is a quality name. Reports indicate that he actually plays the right side. So he's a left shooting defenseman who's been playing the right side. Who knows what he projects to at the professional levels in the professional ranks, if he's going to stay on the left side or the right side. But at least he's got a little bit of some flexibility and some the skill set to maybe play both sides. But who knows where his development is going to continue. Again, we remind everybody that we're going to go until, I think Dave and Ezzy said they're going to go until about 11:30 this morning.
We might go a little bit later. We might go till closer to noon, and we might end up getting Alphonse Frage. We're not sure. Dave M is working the phone lines. The Jets don't answer to me, but they answer to Dave M. But I think we're going to go closer to noon. So maybe another hour and 15.
There you go. So, and of course, throughout the day, illegalcurve.com is your number one resource for everything to do with the NHL draft and the Winnipeg Jets. And that'll be your go-to resource all throughout the weekend as free agency hits come Monday, and any additional Winnipeg Jets news throughout the course of what is bound to be a very busy weekend. But for those of you who are just joining us, the Winnipeg Jets have selected Alphonse Frage from Sweden, a left shot defenseman, good mobility, good puck moving defenseman, very similar to what a lot of teams are looking for nowadays. I know a lot of people are fixated on size and fixated on bulk and, sort of being tough to play against and being vicious in front of your own net. But the NHL is moving to a puck-moving league where if you get the puck in your zone, you want defensemen who can get it out very quickly, and that sounds like that is one of the strengths of Alphonse Frage, the Winnipeg Jets' second-round draft pick, having put up 33 points in 40 games, playing for the Vaxjo Lakers in the Swedish Junior League so far this season. And the Jets, of course, don't pick again until round 4, if I'm not mistaken. So there'll be a bit of a gap now until the Jets' next selection, barring any sort of trade. Speaking of trades, not a new one, but a lot of chatter that Jacob Trouba is going to be heading to Detroit, back home to Detroit, and getting traded from the New York Rangers. Nothing official on that front, but there's definitely some smoke with regard to the future of Jacob Trouba.
What the return is going to be there, because you would assume that a defenseman is coming back.
Okay, here's a big trade. Whoa. Here's a big one.
I like it.
The Utah Hockey Club has acquired Mikhail Sergachev from the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Wow.
So that's a significant deal.
Well, Drew, Utah didn't have any defensemen signed, so that makes sense.
And it looks like, so Mikhail Sergachev going to Utah. We do not know the return for that. We'll keep you looped in on that. And Frank Saravelli also reporting that Kevin Hayes has been traded from the St. Louis Blues. So the Central Division clubs making a splash early.
Well, I'm assuming he's going to join Cutter Gauthier in Anaheim.
We'll keep an eye on what we'll ask our buddy Anthony Sanfilippo if that's going to happen or not. But
Drew, does that open up the possibility Stamkos is going to stay in Tampa Bay now that they've traded that salary away?
It certainly opens up some salary space, but I can't believe you're trading Sergachev just to keep Stamkos.
I like Sergachev a lot. He's a hell of a defenseman. He must have been making, what, $5 million a year?
Connor Geekie is part of the deal going to Tampa Bay.
Wow.
So I'm just
the pride of Strathclair, Manitoba.
Yeah. So I'm looking to see the whole deal, but I don't see, all the details are not yet being released, but it looks like Connor Geekie is part of that trade going from Utah to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
No, that's a huge one, Drew, that you just broke here live on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And, you wonder, Dave, the Lightning, you're muted, Dave. The Lightning acquired.
I said, did he break it or did he announce it?
Well, he announced it, but still, hey, he broke it to us. So
That's
I'm not gonna steal Drew's thunder here. But you wonder, like they reacquired Ryan McDonough, right?
Sorry, Kevin Hayes is going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Kevin Hayes being traded from the.
Does anybody really care where Kevin Hayes is going, including Kevin Hayes?
I think he'll be okay playing with Crosby. I think he'll enjoy that opportunity.
As long as he's not playing on the fourth line, Dave. I think that Penguins fans will like that. That was a bit of a shot at Kevin Hayes because, as you remember, back in 2019, he was acquired and ended up playing on the fourth line for the Jets, right? But good for Kevin Hayes. It's a fresh start for him, right?
Yeah.
But you wonder, Dave, if like Victor Hedman, does he not also have a year left on his contract? I thought
the rumor with Hedman is that they're going to sign him to an extension on Monday.
Right. So they bring back Ryan McDonough. They've got Hedman there.
Yeah. Well, they free up $8.5 million in cap space.
Was Sergachev's hit $8 million?
$8.5 million.
Oh wow! I thought it was closer to $5 million.
No, $8.5 million until the end of 2030-31. So for the next 6 years, 7 years, they open up that significant amount of cap space.
So they're going to use that for Hedman, but you wonder if maybe they're going to be able to keep Stamkos. I have no idea, but it's certainly you didn't really hear Sergachev's name out there a lot, but that's a good trade for Utah. Look, Utah drafted Tija Ginla. Yeah. They've traded for Mikhail Sergachev. Sean Durzee's a guy they have to re-sign. And I believe now Sergachev is the only defenseman they have under contract, if I'm not mistaken.
They certainly had an absence of defensemen. They filled that by acquiring a pretty damn good one who's under team control for the next 6-7 years. Here's the full deal. Sergachev to Utah, as I mentioned, going back to Tampa Bay, JJ Moser, Connor Geekie, a second round pick next year, and what appears to be, if I can do some simple math, a 7th round pick this year. So really a late round pick this year. Forget about it. I
got to be honest. I really like that trade for Tampa Bay too. JJ Moser's a defenseman. So I believe he is an RFA because I don't think he's been signed yet. He had 26 points. He had 31 points last year from Switzerland. He was a 2nd round pick back in 2021. Which I believe was the Chaz Lucius year, right, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Connor Geekie is a guy that we're obviously biased here from Manitoba, but I think Geekie has a long NHL career ahead of him. So Tampa Bay clears all that cap room.
Yeah.
Plus they get a couple good young players in Moser and Geekie and a draft pick.
Moser is a arbitration eligible RFA. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, there's a downgrade in getting rid of Sergachev, but if you can fill that with Moser, Connor Geekie is a hell of a young player, should be,
and a 2nd round pick.
And a 2nd round pick. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to like here from the Tampa Bay perspective.
Yeah.
In building them for the next wave of players. Almost this keeps their window open and keeps them as a viable contender moving forward. They still have all the talent and the names that you know of, but now that they've gotten younger and freed up some cap space, maybe it's a short-term pain for the year for long-term gain after that. I mean, I don't think they're going to be as good without Sergachev next year, but maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, they have something brewing that keeps a lot of that window open moving forward.
No, absolutely. And it opens up the cap space, which some of that is going to go to JJ Moser. But Geekie's going to be on his entry-level deal, and now you can have money in the future, more money for Victor Hedman. The salary cap's going to go up. So I like that trade a lot for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I also like it for Utah. Make no mistake, guys, Utah now has their number one defenseman. Sergachev on Tampa Bay isn't a number one defenseman because it's kind of like, that guy in the shadow behind Victor Hedman, but you forget Sergachev had like 60, 65 points a couple years ago. So I like that move a lot for both teams, actually. And, we'll see if there's some more trades. We were talking about it before the show started, right, guys? Or as the show started, I should say. We weren't sure if there was going to be any blockbuster trades. I think this fits the bill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a blockbuster trade at any time of the year. Yeah. Anytime you don't see, Mikhail Sergachev, you remember, he was a part of the Drouin trade. He was,
That's right.
He was
drafted by the Habs.
Yep. 9th overall. He was the part of, they thought that they were acquiring their next, French-Canadian superstar. The Habs did in trading Sergachev for Jonathan Drouin. And obviously that didn't work out for Drouin in Montreal, but Mikhail Sergachev, I'm sure, is probably sitting here absolutely stunned. And I'll tell you what's more shocking to me is that he didn't have, as far as I can tell, he didn't have any protection against the trade on his contract that he signed with Tampa Bay, when everybody and their dog gets a no trade clause and a no move clause nowadays. I'm shocked that Sergachev didn't have one. I'll have to look a little bit deeper into that, but just at quick glance, I'm surprised that deal didn't include any no trade protection, as he.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I'm not sure if you mentioned
no trade clause kicked in. The no trade clause kicks in, I think, on July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there you go. They didn't have much time, right?
Yeah,
they had 48 hours to make that trade, but and you got to think that Sergachev probably wouldn't have waived it, right? Like, why would you waive it? You're down in Tampa Bay. You're on a good team. We'll see, but if that comes out, but I don't know if you mentioned it, but Chris Johnson no salary retained for Sergachev. So Chris Johnson reported that obviously this has implications for Victor Hedman's next contract, but also they're going to take one final run at Steven Stamkos. I don't know if you guys heard this, and obviously, this could be, a little bit of, Penguins fans just really hoping for the best, but Stamkos was linked to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, can you imagine Crosby, Malkin, Stamkos, Letang, Carlson? Like, that's a video game team. Look, I don't think Stamkos would make them a cup contender, by the way, but I think it would be really cool considering how close Crosby and Stamkos are, like how close they were drafted to each other, because Stamkos was 2008 and Crosby was 2005, I believe, first overall picks. Anyways, I just thought, that would just be cool. I'm sorry, I'm going to fanboy for a second. I think it would be pretty neat to see Stamkos in a Pens jersey, but we shall wait and see. Apparently the Red Wings are in there, and I think there's a few other teams that would love to have What about the Leafs for Stamkos?
Well, the ties to Steve Yzerman in Detroit have been talked about a lot lately, that he might go there, and it'll be interesting to see how. I don't think Tampa's desperate to get him under contract. This is about Victor Hedman. This isn't about Steven Stamkos.
Oh yeah, no,
there's no question.
Yeah. Hedman's for sure the golden boy.
Yeah, Hedman is the guy that they need under contract. Stamkos is, he'll be 35 years old coming up pretty soon in February. So you're not trading a 26-year-old defenseman to keep a 35-year-old forward who's more of a luxury, as incredible of a forward as Steven Stamkos is and has been throughout the entirety of his career. So you're not trading him to keep Stamkos. They know what they are willing to pay Stamkos, and they're not going to go much over that, if at all.
If I could just break in here. Sorry, Drew. I know we're probably going to take a break pretty soon, but
yes,
I know Dave M is working hard on the website right now. Murat, our good friend of the show, reported this about 10 minutes ago. I'm not sure if Dave mentioned this or got this in the article. Dave, you can include this if you want. Murat says that he believes Frage, forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, intends to play in Sweden's Allsvenskan, one step below the top SHL at Björklöven next season. So that makes sense. Obviously nobody was expecting Anders Frage to come over and play in the American Hockey League necessarily next year, right, Dave? But this is one thing I wanted to mention. I have it pulled up here somewhere. Alphonse Frage actually played for 8 different teams last year. Wow. Which is pretty crazy, because in Sweden you see guys jump up between the junior league and then the SHL and the league below it, the Allsvenskan.
Hang on, another one. John Marino, who has been talked about from the Devils, he's going to Utah too, according to Elliot Friedman.
Wow!
So this is how the look. We know that the Utah Hockey Club has an abundance of draft picks and a lack of defensemen. So I think you're seeing how they're planning on using that abundance of draft picks is to fill their holes on the back end. I do not know the return yet. We'll see if it's hasn't been announced. Just that John Marino is also on his way to Utah to fill in on that blue line for the Utah Hockey Club. The Central Division, by the way, is only getting harder as we go on here, with Utah actually becoming a real hockey team, not the charity case that the Coyotes were for so long.
And we mentioned Sean Durzi. As a Devils fan, I don't think Durzi is going to be the return. Maybe he is, but I can say as a Devils fan, John Marino had a bit of a mixed year last year. Like, he's a big kind of he can move the puck. He's a good defenseman. He's a guy that can play. He's not really going to play, like, he's not going to quarterback a team's power play, but he's a guy that can play a little bit second power play, but Marino's a pretty good defenseman. So like you got to give Bill Armstrong credit in Utah, right? Like he's kind of been mocked a little bit for not having any defensemen under contract, but he's now acquired John Marino. He's acquired Mikhail Sergachev.
Yeah.
They've got Tija Ginla, who obviously is going to be a couple years away from playing in the NHL, but you got to give Bill Armstrong credit. Like we talk about this all the time. Dave mentioned this about an hour ago. Like this is the time of year and the setting where you want to be active. You've got all teams in one location, and teams are trigger happy. They want to make moves. So I think if you're a Utah fan, obviously fans are really excited to watch their new team. So you got to like that he's been proactive on the trade market.
Utah Yeti, apparently, according to Bill Armstrong, who may have leaked the name by accident.
Did he say Utah Yeti?
I don't know if he said it as a joke, and I couldn't really hear the full quote. I was just listening. I saw it on Twitter while Ez was talking. I was trying to listen, but he said something like a Utah Yeti or whatever. But so maybe he was just joking around.
Yeah, one thing here too, like I saw Chris Johnston and Pierre LeBrun reporting this. Brett Pesce, apparently the Devils are hot after him. So apparently that's why they've moved Marino, because they're going to, and you got to think, guys, Brett Pesce is probably going to make $6-7 million a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so that's part of the reason I think the Devils traded Marino. This is good, guys. This is old school with all these trades happening. I like it.
It's nice. It's fun when there's trades happening. It gives us something to talk about. It gives you two guys something to talk about. I'm going to bid you both adieu. I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm going to say we'll see everybody next Saturday, or I'll see everybody next Saturday. Don't go anywhere, though.
And more importantly, where will you see them? We may be seeing them at the Hockey for All Center view.
We will let you know about. We may be going live on location next Saturday. Ezzy won't be there. He's getting a Richard polyp removed from his nose.
Yep, getting a little nasal surgery.
Yeah, we wish you the best of luck with that nasal surgery. So to Utah, so New Jersey gets a second round pick this year. They get a second round pick next year from Edmonton. It was originally Edmonton's pick. So 2 second round picks for John Marino and a 5th round pick. So that's what you have going to between Utah and New Jersey there on that trade.
I like that trade again for both teams, because the Devils are clearly about to sign Brett Pesce.
Yeah,
because they needed that money. And then Utah gets a bona fide top 4 defenseman, and the Devils also get an extra second round pick. So look, like a lot of the times we bash these trades, but like going back to the Utah Tampa Bay trade, I think that trade makes sense for the Lightning as well, right? Like Connor Geekie, good prospect. JJ Moser, he's a good defenseman. But then the Utah Yeti, or whatever we're calling them, they also get their number 1 defenseman. So logical trades we're seeing here today.
A lot of logic, which is not something you often see in the NHL. Gentlemen, have a great rest of the show. Everyone, thanks for joining or saying hello to me. Have a great Canada Day weekend. Dave and Ezzy will drive the bus from here on out. IllegalCurve.com will keep you updated after Dave and Ezzy wrap up. So don't go anywhere. It's the Illegal Curve. Should I send it to commercial, or do you guys just want to keep going?
No, go to commercial.
Okay, there you go. Legal Curve Hockey Show rolls on this Saturday morning.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
The game can change just like that. Accidents happen when you aren't protected. So now what? Getting to your injury quickly can make all the difference. Help prevent them from being game changers with Linden Market Dental Center. Bonding, crowns, bridges, and dental implants. State-of-the-art treatments are available to help you get back in the game. To learn more, visit LindenMarketDentalCenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
It's all over, folks, and the run has come to an end.
You'll be so far away.
A Canadian team hasn't won the Cup in over 30 years. And the Cup will stay south of the border. Maybe it's time we try something different. This playoff season, let's cheer with the fans we've always cheered against. Team up for the Cup at Boston Pizza.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Welcome back to a much cleaner, much crisper, much Drewer-free segment, the last hour of this day 2 of the NHL draft. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg.
Getting rid of that dead weight, Dave M.
It just feels the air is crisper, like it just feels a little bit, like there's a lot more freedom, if you will. As KWB just said, Drew is finally gone. Spency, it's safe to come in and take over now. There you go. But look, this is this is the best day of the year. I said this last year. This is my favorite weekend. Ezzy and I, as mentioned, we spent many a year from 2011 to 2017 going to the drafts, with the exception of the Jacob Trouba Pittsburgh 2012 draft, which for some reason we skipped. I don't know why, because that would have been fun to go to. But regardless, we started as a,
I think it might have had to do, to be honest with you, Drew's wedding.
Maybe. Was that it?
Drew got married in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what month of the year, but I think that might have had something to do with it. Because you're right. Remus and I went to St. Paul in 2011.
Whoa, and KK.
Yeah, KK. Well, yeah, KK was already down in the US, but yes, KK was at the draft. Got to give our boy Kyle Kozier a shout out in Grand Forks, and the entire Silverman Kozier clan for that matter.
Sure.
But then we didn't go in 2012, but we had a nice run of 2013 in New York or New Jersey.
Well, New Jersey technically.
2014 Philly. 2015 we went to Sunrise, Florida, and hung out in Boca Raton. No big deal. 2016 New York, Buffalo. And then we spent some time in Toronto because it's close. Then 2017 you weren't able to go, unfortunately, but I went to Chicago, hung out with my boy Huss.
By way of Duluth.
So from between 2013 and 2017, we hit up 5 drafts in a row. Not bad.
It was good. It was a good run. And like I was saying on the show yesterday, as the draft's an amazing place to network and to talk to folks and see folks that, sometimes we just have on the show, but we don't necessarily see very often because they're national or international. But it is hard to get work done because we are, you're doing a lot of yapping, but it's a fun environment. And it sounds like, based on what Michael Remus of Winnipeg Sports Talk told us yesterday, they're having a good time and it's been a really cool experience down at the Sphere. So the Jets, as we know, and we've been talking about a little bit, they select Alphonse Frage. We're trying to get the pronunciation correct. Murat was talking to him right now. They're doing their scrum, and he's saying that he shares an agent with Elias Salamonson, so that's good. They've been at a couple of camps together, and Frage says it would be fun to play together someday. He'll be at development camp next week. Again, Frage is a 6'1", almost 200-pound left shot defenseman who plays on the right side. So here's some more from Murat. He says he's a fast offensive D who's looking to improve his physicality. And I'm trying to think if there's anything more about him that we're apparently. And then Scotty Billick saying several teams are lining up to try and get Brendan Dillon. I'm told he's a wanted commodity.
Not surprising. I mean, he's coming off a great year.
Oh, and sorry, Frank Cervalli saying, Ezzy, that if in addition to Brett Pesce, the Devils are expected to take a strong run at pending UFA defenseman Brendan Dillon when the market opens on Monday.
Yeah, and look, I mean, both of these guys are going to be highly sought after because of the fact that they come with a pedigree and they've got the size. Everybody knows Dillon's a big defenseman, Pesce's a big defenseman, but these guys can fill top 4 roles, right?
Right.
Obviously, I think the Devils, no disrespect to Brendan Dillon, I think Brett Pesce is the main target there on the right side. And that goes back to what we were saying before. And it's talked about a lot in hockey, but it's worth mentioning again. Right shot defensemen are hard to get. And sure, you can have guys that are left shot defensemen that play on the right side, but the fact that Alphonse Frage can play on the right side is significant.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that the Jets have more prospects on the left side. They don't have as many prospects as they once did. Declan Chisholm is a guy, obviously, who, they lost through the waiver system, but
right.
Ville Heinola, all indications are that Ville Heinola is going to be in the top 6 next year for the Jets, right? I think we'd all
Mhm.
agree on that, especially with Brendan Dillon out of the picture. Sandberg moves up. Morrissey's obviously your top pair left shot
Oh,
defenseman.
we got a trade to announce, Ezzy.
Go for it, Dave.
Tanner Jeannot acquired by the LA Kings from the Tampa Bay Lightning, as per our boy Chris Johnson.
Well, as per Spency, I think as well.
Oh, there we go. Well, Spency also is breaking news.
You know, Tanner Jeannot, this is interesting again, because I don't know if your head immediately goes there, but my head goes there, and I'm thinking Tampa Bay is clearing cap space and doing everything they can to keep Stamkos.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking right now. Hedman's going to get his extension, Dave, and I imagine it's going to probably be around $8 to $9 million a year.
Yeah.
Just guessing, maybe more than that. I mean, Hedman's a future Hall of Famer. Everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Stamkos, speaking of future Hall of Famers, I mean, you wonder, how, I think it's interesting. Like, how many years do you give Stamkos at his age, Dave? Do you give him 2 years? Do you give him 3 years, 4 years? I'm not sure. But Tanner Jeannot is an interesting one, because you remember the Lightning gave up a lot to acquire Tanner Jeannot prior to the trade deadline. He was originally on the Predators, of course, undrafted player, good Saskatchewan boy. Jeannot had a bad year last year. He only had 14 points, I believe. And, so that trade is not surprising at all. But look, Julien Brisebois, Bill Armstrong, like, these guys are active, and you absolutely love to see it. So, we'll see if there's any trades coming as far as the Jets go. We're only going to be on air for another, 50 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Clearly, Julien Brisebois is making moves to keep his big boys in town.
Okay, we'll get back to you. So you're talking about Alphonse Frage, and I will say, while as he was talking, I just watched the highlight pack, 2 minutes of his highlights, and I got to tell you, the kid can skate, and he's got some vision. So Jets fans look like they're going to like him, and he definitely can get it done. But as you were saying, in terms of the left side of the Jets defense in the prospect pool.
Well, yeah, and just how hard it is to find right shot. Look at right shot defensemen on the free agent market, right? Like, we've talked about Brett Pesce, Chris Tanev is out there, Brandon Montour. I got to think that the Florida Panthers want to keep Brandon Montour, but they also want to keep Sam Reinhart. But my point is that it's very difficult to acquire top 4 defensemen or just good defensemen that are right shot on the free agent market, especially for a team like the Jets. So the fact that Alphonse Frage can play on the right side, I'm not sure if he's played left side or right side, or pardon me, both. But regardless, the fact that he has the ability already identified as an 18-year-old kid, I think has got to be significant. And we've talked about it in years past, Dave. I don't think that the Jets necessarily draft players based on need, but you wonder if in this particular case, maybe they did a little bit more, right? Because like every year, including last year, Colby Barlow. Well, the Jets, that wasn't really what they needed, because they still needed a right shot defenseman last year. And you could still make the argument that, the Jets need more depth on the wings, a la that's why they drafted Rutger McGroarty, who's a winger, right?
Yeah.
But I think that these amateur scouting staffs really draft based on who they think is the best player available to them based on their list. Because we know, Dave, all these teams have different lists. That's why a guy like Berkeley Catton, who went, I think it was 6th or 7th overall to the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah.
I saw some lists that had Berkeley Catton like 19th, ranked 19th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up going top 10. He had 115 points last year in the Western Hockey League, something like that. But it just shows you the disparity in lists, right? So I think it's significant. And again, like you just said, I mean, we know the name of the game in the NHL, and has been for some time now, is skating. And, that's what the Jets need a little bit more of in their prospect pool. Let's be honest here, right? Like, so Alphonse Frage, I think, Jets fans need to temper their expectations a little bit. He's not going to come into the NHL in 2 years from now and win the Norris Trophy. But when you couple Alphonse Frage and Elias Salamonson, and it'll be interesting to see, Dave, maybe you can do some digging at development camp. Maybe these guys know each other a little bit. Not that all Swedish hockey players know each other, but it's possible they've crossed paths at some point.
Oh, no.
They're only a couple of years away.
No. Sorry. Just that's what Murat's post said, was that he said that they're actually, like, first of all, they share an agent, but second of all, Frage said that they've actually been at camps together.
There you go.
That,
sorry, I didn't mention that. I didn't catch the part.
Yeah, you were probably reading something else, right? But
well, no, I mentioned, I caught the part where you said they had the same agent, but I didn't catch the part where you said that they went to camps together, which wouldn't be uncommon for players that share an agent. A lot of these guys train together or they go to different showcases and things like
That's
that.
right. Yeah.
So there's some similarities there, and again, like, this is just good to top up the D prospect pool, because the Jets don't have a lot of top end prospects on defense. And even though this is a second round pick, he certainly looks like a guy, that a couple years from now can come in and play for the Moose in the AHL.
Well, and again, look how highly regarded Elias Salamonson is, and how much excitement is. He's a second round pick, right? And there's a lot of excitement for Jets. Love their Swedish second round picks. Daniel Torgerson, there's another one that comes to mind. But look, I think there's the fact of the matter is that this is a guy that the Jets aren't drafting him for today. They're not drafting him for tomorrow. They're drafting him for the future. And so he is not someone who's going to be. And that's one thing organizationally folks have to remember. Like, you say, oh, well, the Jets have this in the prospect pool right now, but it could change. You could trade, player A and player B and acquire a couple of other pieces. And then suddenly you've got a strength in one area and a weakness in another. Right. All I'm saying is it's, you might say, well, the Jets have a lot of left side guys, but I think that, to me, the critical point about Alphonse is the fact that it's not like Ville Heinola or even Dylan Sandberg. Folks better remember, both these guys are left side guys who primarily played left side. The Moose gave them some chances to play on the right side, as did the Jets, but that's not their comfort. Now, Nate Schmidt, as I've told the story many times, he told me right after he was joined Winnipeg from Vancouver, and I did like a summer series chat with him, and he talked about when he got to Washington, and they said, well, the left, can you play the right side? And he was looking at the left side with all these NHLers, and he's like, I'm going to learn. And he went and he grew, and that's what became his sort of thing. But I'm just saying that in this instance, why I think this guy has appeal is that if he's already comfortable playing on that right side, even though he's a left shot defenseman, it's a good sign for the Winnipeg Jets. And again, that's, augmenting the right side with the prospect pool of Elias Salamonson. You've got Simon Lundmark. I know folks don't really pay attention to him, but the coaching staff seemed to regard him pretty well. He was a 2019. Actually, it's funny. There's another Swedish second rounder, he's a 2019 second rounder drafted after Ville Heinola. And then you've got, of course, Tyrell Bauer. Tico Napoli doesn't need me to mention that because he just did. I didn't look at the chat, and then I did. Of course, Tyrell Bauer, big bruising defenseman. So he, with size, strength, can make guys pay in front of the net. We'll see what he does. He had a good year last year for the Moose. So there is, the right side's getting a little stronger, and now this just adds to that depth and that strength of that pool.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw another scouting report in for Alphonse Frage. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to dig up some scouting reports because Dave and I, last time I checked, we're not able to watch a lot of hockey in Sweden. So yeah, we'll read some scouting reports. We mentioned, got to give a shout out to our friends at Elite Prospects, Cam Robinson, who we used to have on the show all the time. This is Lassie Alanen, who's the director of European scouting for Elite Prospects. Mm-hmm. He says this about Alphonse Frage. He's a very worthwhile bet to make it 37th overall, an explosive and elusive skater with plenty of moves from the point and good activation instincts, generated a lot of 5-on-5 offense at the junior 20 level this year. The feet give him defensive potential too. So again, if there's one standout for people who are just joining us right now or listening on the podcast, I think, and obviously people listening on the podcast probably have already been listening for a little while, but just to kind of go back to Alphonse Frage, if you're joining us, more so for the people joining us live here, the thing that stands out about him is that he's an offensive-minded defenseman and a really good skater. Reading another scouting report here, he saying that he is one of the, we mentioned this earlier, but just for those who just tuned in, what could be one of the best skaters in the draft. So again, the name of the game today in the NHL, and it has been for quite some time. It's not like, this has just been the case for the last year or two, but skating is very important. And, you look at that first round series against the Avalanche, the Jets had some issues moving the puck into the Avalanche zone. And Alphonse Frage looks like that type of prototypical puck moving defenseman, good skater. So again, he's going to play in Sweden. We already mentioned that earlier, for at least one more year, but looks like he's kind of, to Dave's point, on that kind of Elias Salamonson trajectory, because I think you'd agree, Dave. I think the Jets, Moose, Mike Keane, Jimmy Roy, I think they're doing their best to get Salamonson over here to North America to play next season for the Moose.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. As I think that that's exactly where you'll see him. I know Jets fans want to see him wearing a Jets uniform, and the truth is, again, always worth pointing out that training camp will be the opportunity for these guys to kind of get that look, and we'll see if they're prepared to do it. And that's one of the things I know. We tend to focus on. Oh, this guy's not given an opportunity. But as Jimmy Toast said, and as we've discussed, look, if Brad Lambert goes out there and shows that he's the best second line center option that this team has, then they're going to use Brad Lambert as the best second line center option this team has. And they're not going to say, well, we can't afford to have Brad Lambert in with the Jets. Remember, every NHL team wants to win. That's the ultimate goal of a team. You're not there going, well, we want to win, but you have to think about the future, right? Like that's what I said. Like this draft is all about the future. This draft isn't about winning now. It's never about winning now. It's about winning in 3-4 years. You're hoping to add a piece or two that can ultimately help push your group to that next level. From my perspective, again, like I said, this is an opportunity for, a guy like Salamonson. Again, like he's another one, as though we're going to see if he comes in and he wins the job. The Jets were going to have to make a hard decision last year, right? Like if Ville Heinola doesn't get injured, was it like September 29th, just before training camp ended in that game against Ottawa in Ottawa? I mean, he's on the roster. Rick Bowness said it. And if he's on the roster, that means they had to make a hard decision as to what they were going to do to get down to become roster compliant. Elias Salamonson, another guy who we just assumed when we talked to him at development camp last year, he said, I'm going to come back here for training camp, and I'm going to try and win a job. And if I don't win the job, then I'll go back to Schlefka and I'll try and do what I can do. Now, we know he ultimately went back to Schlefka and won an SHL championship. But he was also a very late cut, and he was sent down to the Moose before he was actually assigned back home to Sweden. So there are these opportunities for these guys to get to that next level. And I don't think the teams are wanting to hold them back. They're wanting to do what is in their mind best for their development. There's no point in drafting a guy, investing time, money, and effort into him to stagnate him. It's just so counterintuitive to what your objective as a hockey team is. Again, sometimes do guys get stuck based on their contract situations? Yeah, I'd say Ville Heinola, not this past season, but the year before, when he had a really good year or, good showing and he's a victim of the fact that he's waiver exempt and he was an easy decision to send down. But ultimately, then you put yourself into a position like he played really well all training. He did everything well in training camp. He looked really good in the preseason games. Ville Heinola earned himself a spot in the Jets roster. Doesn't ultimately get it. But I'm just saying that there's opportunities for guys that can supplant. I mean, again, if you have Nate Schmidt and Elias Salamonson, and Salamonson is heads and tails above Nate Schmidt, well, I mean, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you're not going to say, well, Nate Schmidt has to be on a roster. He's a good guy as a veteran. You're going to say, we're going to give Salamonson the shot. That's all I'm saying. And again,
and that's why I think it's the right decision. Look, I know Kevin Cheveldayoff and the Jets are not going to say this, but I really think the decision not to sign Brendan Dillon is immediately connected to Ville Heinola. Heinola's got to play this year. He's played. He like you watch the AHL a lot more than I do, Dave. But every time I went to go watch the Moose this year, I was like, Heinola is by far the best defenseman on either team, regardless who the Moose were playing. Could have been playing the Chicago Wolves, could have been playing Rockford, whoever. I mean, Heinola, speaking of skating, look, I'm not saying that Heinola is going to be the rookie of the year next year. I'm just saying that Heinola has nothing more to prove at the AHL level, right? He's proven he's one of the best defensemen in the AHL, right? I think you'd agree. Mm-hmm. So I think that and this goes back to what we were talking about before, because obviously a lot of Jets fans are curious to see if the team's going to re-sign Sean Monahan. I just don't. I think the decision not to bring back Brendan Dillon, even though Dillon was a great soldier for the Jets, and I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah,
I just don't see a path for Heinola to make the Jets top six with Dillon there. Because yes, could he play the right side? Sure. But correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of his time with the Moose, he was a left shot defenseman.
Yeah.
Right? So again, this whole notion of like Nate Schmidt is a talent, these guys are high performance athletes. Yes, they can play both sides, but I just didn't think that there was a path for Heinola if the Jets brought back Dylan. So that's why I think Heinola, there's a good shot he's going to be on the third pair. Could that be with Nate Schmidt? Could that be with Neil Pionk? Could both of those guys be traded? I have no idea, but I think Heinola is a guy that absolutely has to play full-time in the NHL next year, and we'll wait and see with Salamonson. Like, I think, could Salamonson jump right into the NHL? No, that's probably not going to happen, but we'll see what happens with the way he plays with the AHL. I mean, guys develop at different ages, and they take longer, right? So I still think Salamonson's probably better served to play a full year in the American Hockey League, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, but I think, again, look, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I don't see an organization that's stagnating their prospects. I don't. And, the Kyle Connor story, which I hadn't actually heard before, even though I covered him with the Moose, but, Jim told that story. He was sent down after, again, lighting up the AHL. Why? Because he had a bad training camp. Like, it's not always a conspiracy theory to, again, if a guy can do it, these training camp runs, let's say, what does it run, Ezzy? From mid-September till essentially mid-October.
I was going to say it's the
first week of
3 weeks. I mean,
3 weeks,
obviously you have a lot of practicing in the beginning, and then it turns into preseason games. But yeah, I'd say about 3 weeks.
So you got 3 weeks of evaluating these guys every single day. What I'm suggesting is, though, again, is that I don't think there's a conspiracy theory to try and hurt your development of your prospects. And I think I gave, the example I gave, which is the Moose made the decision to use 3 centers, which they knew wasn't going to win them very many hockey games, and they didn't win very many hockey games. But Danny Zhilkin, Chaz Lucius, and Brad Lambert all really gained a lot in terms of their development. Now, obviously, Danny Zhilkin and Brad Lambert both had, Chaz Lucius had season-ending surgery, so they were limited in terms of how many games they played. But, the Moose played 11 Jets prospects on this team this year. And I don't have to go through them all, but, Nikita Chibrikov, they developed Parker Ford, right? I mean, I know he's not a Jets draft pick, but he's a college free agent signing. Again, a guy that a lot of folks thought was in training camp as he last year, that folks said, oh, well, he could be the 13th forward. But he wasn't the 13th forward. Instead, they put him between Christian Reichel. He played with Lambert and Malott, but then they played him with Christian Reichel and Jeffrey Viel. He played all 72 games. He was the only player, after playing a college season, which maxes out around 36 games, 38 games, he played 72 games last year. So I'm just saying that, guys got opportunities to develop at the pro leagues without the pressure of trying to do that at the NHL. Kyle Connor talked about the pressure. I'm just saying that I don't see the stagnation, right? Nikita Chibrikov, Brad Lambert, even Henry Nicken and Daniel Torgerson, all these guys got opportunities. The defense, again, almost all, there were some veterans, all the Jets draft picks, Simon Lundmark, Tyrell Bauer, Ville Heinola, so Dmitry Kuzmin. So I'm just saying, I don't see this destruction element of, again, sometimes there is, and look, we've said it on the show, right? As when they brought in Schmidt and Dylan, we're saying, okay, well, now what you're doing is you're blocking the path forward for guys like Samberg and Heinola. But it probably served them well, because even though they over-ripened, it cost about a year, but they over-ripened a little bit. But now Samberg is a guy that they relied on, right?
Yeah, I don't look Samberg. I don't think anything. His development, I have no issues with at all. I think that Heinola, I didn't like the way he was used this last year, even the last couple years. But I think, if anything, that's because the Jets didn't manage their NHL defensemen properly. And by that, I mean, you had Logan Stanley, who at times was playing. Remember, Dylan Samberg was a healthy scratch earlier this season. People forget about that, right? Like I've said on this show before, I think Samberg is the Jets' second best defenseman. And, that's saying a lot, because I'm putting him ahead of Dylan DeMello. That's how much I like Dylan Samberg. Obviously, at the very least, I think most Jets fans would agree Samberg's a top 3 defenseman on the Jets. But the point I'm trying to make is there just wasn't any space for Heinola to be anything more than a 7th or 8th defenseman on this team, right? Because you had Nate Schmidt and Dylan Samberg as your third pair for the most of last year. And then you had Logan Stanley coming in And then, obviously Colin Miller being acquired meant that Heinola was not going to be getting any playoff time with the Jets, right? So I didn't love how the Jets managed Heinola, but we've reached the point where either you trade him or he's got to be in your top 6 because he's a first round talent. He can move the puck. He's got a lot of upside. You can't lose him. And you've talked about this. You're not losing him to waivers. I mean, that would be a scandal if the Jets lost him to waivers. Obviously, Declan Chisholm is not as talented as Ville Heinola, but also Chisholm's a good defenseman. So I think that, this year the Jets are in a pretty good position with their defense, except for that right side. Because if you're running it back with that defense last year, even though the team won the Jennings Trophy, I still think they need to improve that right side. I have no problem with Neil Pionk is your third pairing defenseman on this team, but I think if he's a second pairing defenseman, we see how he gets exposed. And I think that's my biggest concern. And that's why I hope that the Jets are able to bring in someone via free agency or via a trade to upgrade that top 4, because then it gives the Jets more options. And I just think they need to get stronger. I think that's kind of, Elias Salomonsson is an intriguing prospect, but Dave, I don't think you can put too much pressure on him to come in and be this kind of savior on the right side. I still think, you got to remind yourself of his age, right? He's 20 years old, and that's still very young. And we know defensemen take longer to develop. That's just the reality. Look at Ville Heinola, right? So I still think the Jets are going to need to address that via trade or via free agency, and we'll have to wait and see when that happens. But I think that, that's probably on, Chevy's whiteboard right now. Is probably got, acquire a right shot defenseman in big letters.
Well, Ezzy, if he's going to be doing that, it's going to be in about 30 years, because they haven't even gotten through the end of the second round. I think the Oilers are on the clock with pick 64, which means, if my math is correct, that would be the last pick of the second round. The Jets, of course, do not have a third round pick. Their next, unless they make an acquisition of one. Right now, their next pick is 123 overall. That's the fourth round. So we'll wait to see who the Jets take with that fourth round pick. I'm trying to think of some past fourth rounders. As who jumps to mind as the Jets' fourth round pick? Eric Foley, was he a third rounder or a fourth rounder?
Ooh. I mean, that's going back to what, 2012. Fourth rounder Andrew Kopp, was he a fourth rounder?
Yeah, I think Kopp might have been a fourth rounder, or was he a third rounder? I think Kopp was a fourth rounder.
Kopp was a fourth rounder.
I feel like
Kopp was a fourth rounder.
Was CJ Cease also a fourth rounder?
I thought Cease was a fifth rounder, but he could have been fourth round too. Hold on,
I feel like he was a fourth rounder.
He was a fifth rounder.
Fifth, okay.
Yep.
And Kopp was so who are some of the notable fourth rounders for the Jets have taken? Anyone?
I'm trying to remember in previous years if I can think of anybody who was a fourth rounder in 2015. Appleton was a fifth rounder, right?
No, he was sixth
rounder. Okay. Who did they take in the fourth round that year? I forgot.
Was it 2015? But Michael Spacek.
Yes, there you go. Spacek, he was a pretty good player, even though he didn't really work out in the NHL. But Andrew Kopp for a fourth round pick, and that's the beauty of the draft, right? Every year, we talk about how, he's only a second rounder, a third rounder, and he doesn't turn into anything. Well, Connor Hellebuyck was a fifth rounder, and he has 2 Vezina trophies, right? So there you go.
No, and if you look, really, they haven't really hit, on their fourth rounders yet. Henry Nikkanen, he's a decent fourth rounder. He was projected to be higher. Garrett Brown from University of Denver, who his teammate he'll be going up against his teammate if he ever makes the NHL. And how do you pronounce his last name? Ezzy?
Zeev Buum.
Is it Buum? Okay,
I think so.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, is that how you put the bomb on? But
member of the tribe. Obviously a member of the tribe. Yeah.
But anyway, Lowry was a third rounder in 2011. Anyways, lots of good times, lots of things to talk about. We're in day 2 of the NHL draft. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsberg. We do this show every Saturday. We've got a couple more weeks after this show, and then we're going to be on holidays. We'll be on holidays for, about 5 or 6 weeks, maybe even longer. But we need a little hiatus. But don't worry, we're going to we'll be back, and we'll be doing some summer series stuff. And like I said, next week, depending on the Jets development camp schedule, we will Sorry, I'm just texting Ezzy in the private chat. But yeah, we'll definitely have possibly a live pop-up show next week. So come say hello to us, not to Ezzy, because he's getting rid of his Richard Polyp. Anyways, let's head to commercial. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribing. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Extended Edition Draft Day 2 coverage. We are back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Extended Edition. No Drew Mandel. He's gone. We dipped him about 36 minutes ago. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. We've got the face of Ross Levitan, who's joining us all the way from the Sphere in Las Vegas. We're going to bring him in. Hey, Ross, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good, boys. I'm just getting a little quieter area, but happy to be on with you. And I really like what the Jets did at 37. That Alphonse Frey, kind of in that mold of, a bit of Ville Heinola in him, but you hope maybe the offense can translate to the next level. But I like the pick a lot.
So Ross, it's Frey. It's not Frege. The J is silent.
Frey.
Okay, it's Frey. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Now I said Frege about 10 times, so now I'll call him Frey. The J is silent. I like it.
Well, Ross, it was good timing because when I was doing some searches on YouTube after the selection, I saw you and the Locked On Senators folks had done a segment on Alphonse. So maybe share your knowledge about him with the folks here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Yeah, for sure. So we did 80 draft profiles, so they all kind of blend together to an extent. But from what I remember, just a great puck mover. If I'm not mistaken, he was a captain when he was on his way up. So to me, it's just like a great depth piece. Now, he's not a guy who's going to play in the next 2-3 years. I think you're going to have to be really patient with him. But the payoff could be great. He's one of those like a little undersized players, but isn't afraid to mix it up either. So I think from that perspective, you're getting a guy who I would say, looking at the Jets prospect pool, should we just omit Rucker McGroarty already? If we do, then I'm looking at, he's behind Lambert. He's probably behind Chibrikov and Salmonson. But for me, he's right below Salmonson in terms of the hierarchy of the prospect pool.
So Ross, obviously you just stepped out and to join us, which we appreciate. And you've been down in Vegas covering the draft for CJOB, Locked On Senators, obviously. And you mentioned Rucker McGroarty, and wanted to ask you, what have you been kind of hearing? What's the scuttlebutt been around down in Vegas? Because obviously, we've been hearing a lot from the insiders that a trade, might happen down there. But what are you hearing about McGroarty and just kind of the Jets in general, and about what they might do, with free agency just a couple days away?
Well, what I can tell you is that Rucker McGroarty is held in high regard around the hockey world. Every conversation that I've asked about Rucker McGroarty, people are kind of just like, whoa, can't believe a guy like that's available at that age. And you're almost fast forwarding the draft, right? He's already got those 2 extra draft plus seasons. So you're closer to getting an NHL player, but still with the upside of having a prospect. So I think that I was a bit surprised that there wasn't much movement. I think every trade last night just involved pick swaps. Yeah. Whereas today we're starting to see the moves, right? John Marino and Mikhail Sergachev both go to Utah. So Kevin Hayes is on the move. Logan Thompson just got traded to Washington from Vegas. That was a bit of a surprise for me. But we're starting to see those players get moved. And Tanner Jeannot, hope maybe they're clearing cap space for Stamkos. So we are starting to see kind of the hose is ungripped. And now we're starting to see it flow a little bit more. So to answer your question, I was a little surprised that the Jets didn't get into the first round last night. I don't know if they prefer a 2025 first-round pick based on the strength of draft or whatever the case may be. But I was surprised, and I was also surprised to hear Kevin Cheveldayoff last night. I'm sure you guys have discussed, saying that Nikolai Ehlers is a big part of the future of the Jets. Now, is that just posturing, or do they mean it? And could an extension be worked on after July 1st? To me, the Jets are one of the most intriguing teams in terms of, they got a lot to do, but I'm not sure whether they're going to look for futures or try to make sure that their NHL roster is at a peak performance going into next camp.
Well, Ross, I got to tell you, I love the fact that you're walking around while doing the interview. This reminds me of we had Kenny. No, I don't mind it. You're giving everybody a little taste of
Ross actually just dropped $100 on the blackjack tables.
Oh no, the blackjack tables, they're inviting me back like crazy. I'm a donation for them. But here, I'll take everyone in here. We'll go. It's such a cool. Now this is the 100, so the canopy kind of covers it a little bit. But here, let's see what we can do. It's too bad it's not the Jets pick. But here, I'll. Can I spin my camera around?
You can, yes.
There we go.
Ooh, look at that. Ooh, now we're on the draft floor. I feel like
We're
I'm
on
there.
the draft floor, live from the draft floor. Colorado Avalanche are on the clock.
So it goes way up. Oh, we got a trade.
Oh, trade alert.
Live reaction.
Here,
Traded pick number 7.
I just picked. So there you go. We're inside the sphere. How do you guys feel so far? Are you surprised McGroarty hasn't been moved?
well, you know what? The thought was that if McGroarty was going to get moved, it would have been last night. Like the idea of dealing with him now just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, just because you don't have that pressure point really of doing it, right? Like if you wanted to get into that first round, maybe from a Jets perspective, like as he mentioned this, like this seems like a Jamie Drysdale, Cutter Gauthier type situation where you look at another organization who has a draft pick, maybe, you know, a 2021, a 2022 draft pick who maybe isn't, you know, like happy with the situation. And I tend to go, it's funny. I keep saying like Jiricek in Columbus because the right shot defenseman was apparently, and again, we don't follow the Blue Jackets, but apparently wasn't happy in terms of his usage last year. Now, you know, there's always the thing about, well, do you want someone who's a malcontent? But that's generally how you're going to get someone who has some upside, right? He was a 5th overall pick in the same draft as Rutger McGroarty. Do you want to try and rehabilitate that? Similar to what the Jets did with Dubois for Line, right? That sort of idea. So that to me is the one now you kind of peel away and say, okay, move it back. But I was saying, Ross, it's kind of awkward. Jets have development camp next week, right? Is Rutger McGroarty going to be at development camp? Now he's already done one. And I know the NCAA rules, I can't remember if they've changed now in terms of attendance at these camps. But, you know, like I said, I know he's been to one, the team can pay for the one, but it might have to be out of pocket. I don't remember if they've augmented that rule or not. But from your point of view, I mean, like I said, it's an interesting scenario.
Oh, it's super interesting. And I think what complicates it even further is, to me, the Jets need to figure out what their identity is going to be, because they're going to get a big piece with McGroarty. It's like, are you going to target a defenseman or a forward? And if so, what's the subsequent kind of domino effect? So I'm really intrigued with the Jets. I think that obviously they had a great regular season last year. Are they going to over adjust based on what happened against Colorado in the first round? To me, that's the biggest question. Are they going to stay the course at the team that they were? Or are they like, oh man, we're going to have to go through Dallas and Colorado one way or another if we want to get out of the first round, most likely. How are we going to change the structure of how we're built to be able to do that? So to me, that's a fascinating question. Obviously, it's tough that it seems like Brendan Dillon's days with the Jets are just about done. Can Dylan Sandberg be an every night top 4 defenseman? I think I've seen the potential of it for sure, but it is like a little bit of a step back based on what Brendan Dillon's going to give you, solid 22, 23 minutes every night. So I don't know if they're looking to kind of maybe, we talked last time I was on about potentially buying out Nate Schmidt. You'd think maybe that would have been done by now if they were going to. So if he's going to be guaranteed on your third pair, it just kind of gets a trickle down where I don't know what they're targeting. So I guess that adds to the curiosity and the intrigue around whatever their next big move is.
Ross, I wanted to we mentioned you guys do a great job on the Locked On Senators podcast, and I wanted to go back to the 7th overall pick, and we were talking about this because there were a lot of options there at number 7 for the Sens, and they end up going to the Calgary Hitmen and taking Carter Yakemchuk, and I love this pick because this is obviously a puck moving defenseman, but this is a guy who's physical, and just look at his penalty minutes. He had over 100 penalty minutes in the dub last year, right? So this is my type of player, and I just wanted to ask you what your opinion is of that draft, because obviously Zane Parekh was there. A lot of people thought the Sens might take him. He ends up going to the Calgary Flames at 9th overall. Just what did you think of that pick, and how's that being received by Sens fans?
Well, Ezra, I know you guys are busy, so you didn't see the Sens pick at 39. They took another 6'7" defenseman who had 100 penalty minutes in 30 games in the Swedish Junior League. They have a type. There's no question about that. But if you watch, it's not only the physicality with Carter Yakemchuk, but it's also the offensive instincts. He told us last night after the draft that his favorite player growing up was Jordan Eberle. And our colleague Ian Mendez was like, well, I'm surprised it's not a defenseman. He's like, no, I've always loved having control of the puck. And he loved the way that Jordan Eberle dangles. And it's funny that you watch his highlight reel. He's like doing spinoramas in the offensive zone and You know, he's putting the puck through guys' legs and around their triangle. It's pretty impressive. Now, the skating needs work, but you got to think that that's one of the most attainable attributes that you can get better at over time. He filled a position of need for Ottawa, right shot D. They're very heavy on the left side, which is why, and by the way, Dave, you mentioned we did all those draft profiles at LOSP. Out of 80 of them, the one that we said do not draft was Gabriel Eliasson, and we picked him 39th overall. So that's a lesson in having a hot take pre-draft. But Yakimchuk seems like a great kid, and it's going to be a longer process for him. But anyone who's seen him in the WHL, I mean, 30 goals and 100 penalty minutes for a defenseman, that doesn't happen very often.
Love it. That's like Rick Tocchet type of numbers, right?
Yeah, big time. And 71 points, 104 penalty or 20 penalty minutes. So yeah, it's hilarious. But we got to spend some time with his grandfather here last night. He saw the Sens jersey and came over and said hi. And just a great salt of the earth family. The dad owns a bunch of Boston pizzas, so or Burger King, sorry. So, you know, blue collar, hardworking family, and we're happy to have him in Ottawa for sure.
So, Russ, I was going to ask you or Ross, sorry, I don't know why I said Russ. I was thinking of someone else, but Russ, you know,
Russ?
I was thinking of like Russ Hobson maybe, but you know, global news.
I gotta fill in for Russ next Friday. Big shoes to fill. So.
Well, hopefully they don't call you Russ, Ross.
Yeah, hopefully they don't.
I'm convinced I got the opportunity because it was easy to change the Chiron by one letter.
Well, Ross, you know, as I said, like you're doing what Weber once did when I think it was during the playoffs, and he was in Colorado covering a series, and he literally walked all around outside Denver doing the chat. But this is great.
I should have set an outdoor walk on my my Apple Watch. I'm getting my steps in. I'm a pacer though. Even when I'm on the phone or anything, I'm always pacing.
No, this is a great live from Las Vegas, live from the Sphere. Ross showing us all the machinations of the draft. Love it.
And
well, I'm nervous too. When I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I got to come on with the boys. When the Leafs had their selection, I don't know if you could see on TV, but was it all upside down, all the highlights? Because it was upside down in the Sphere, and I was booing very loudly for that. And then they ended up trading the pick. So I think I lost my voice from that one, but I've been told it's just called Vegas voice. It was a red light night for me last night, right to bed. It's obviously really early here. Round 2 started at 8:30 local time. So no, I'm fresh and ready to go. And it's my first draft experience. And I know it's decentralizing after this, but I still think it's a bucket list item. Just seeing I met some great Jets fans from St. James yesterday night. And nice. It's just cool because I think the highest percentage of jerseys, probably San Jose because they had the first pick, but it's probably like 6%. Like it's people from all over the hockey world come here, and it's a super cool event, and definitely I'd recommend it as a bucket list item.
Well, and that was kind of going to be my last question to you, was simply that idea of, you know, the experience that you've been able to enjoy and that idea of just the buzz, you know, and Ezzy and I talked about it. We went to like 5 or 6 straight drafts. So it really is an incredible atmosphere, but you're probably your biggest, maybe. Well,
Ross is a young guy. Just to show you, Ross, you're a young man. I'm 42 now. And I used to go to these drafts. You know what I was doing last night? I was at Silver City, St. Vital, watching Inside Out 2 with my kids. So that's why it's good to have you. You're a young buck down there at the draft in Vegas. And like you said, I mean, you get everybody in the hockey world together in one place. And that's why it's such a shame that they're decentralizing. I saw Jesse Pollock was putting it out there. They should have it at the Sphere every single year, the draft.
They really should. Now, I've heard from some of the people in the media that maybe it's not the most set up for them to do their job at its best. So the capital J journalists might have something to say about the Sphere. But for a fan experience, it's awesome. And before the draft, they just had like a little part of the screen illuminated. And we're like, oh, is this it? And then right when it started, the whole thing lit up. And yeah, it is obviously Vegas. Like the one synonym is like it's grand. Everything here is grand. And they certainly know how to put on a show.
All right, I was trying to get Ezzy to do something, Ross, because I was recording something, but he didn't see my message in the private chat.
I was waiting for you there, Dave. I was going to jump in.
If you read the private chat, I said I'm trying to record something so I get this up on the thing, and I didn't want to create any background noise. But anyway, so thanks, Ross, for being joining us.
I didn't see that, Dave. Sorry.
That's all good. Hey. It's all good. I'll talk loudly, and hopefully folks won't be hearing it because we're going to try and get the interview with Alphonse Frey, not Frey.
Alphonse
Like
Frey.
Yeah.
Alphonse
Yeah,
Frey.
and if you guys want, feel free to play that draft profile if you want to give your listeners a little bit of a deeper insight on him, or whatever you need. You know, I'm here for you, and I appreciate you guys inviting me on. So enjoy the rest of your show, and thanks everybody for watching.
You're a beauty, Ross. We're gonna have. I'm gonna give you a little prediction for this summer. We're gonna have some beers together this summer because we owe you
Hey,
for all
the
your
first-
appearances on IC.
The first time I came on with you guys, you were at a brewery, and I didn't get the invite. So you're lucky I even came back.
No, we're gonna hook you up this summer. We gotta, the off season. We need the off season just as much as the players do, right?
Yeah, big time. Hey, one final push. We got free agency next week, and then we'll kick our feet up. I was getting roasted, by the way, for wearing Birkenstocks to the draft last night. It's 44 degrees in Vegas. Like, what do you want me to wear? Boots?
Wear those Birkenstocks with pride. There's nothing wrong with that.
I got bullied. I'm wearing shoes today. Crazy.
It's okay.
All right,
I
thanks,
get bullied for wearing Skechers, so whatever. See you, Ross. Thanks.
Have a good one. See you guys.
Cheers, Ross. Man, it looks like everybody's having fun down there in Vegas, Dave. It makes me miss those times we used to go to the draft. But
I know.
Maybe we'll turn it into. We'll start going to the All-Star game, or maybe we'll start picking a Jets road trip to go to or whatever. But it's been a while since we've hit the road together. We used to do it every year, but now we stay in Winnipeg. We got to stay close to home and deliver all this great content for our viewers, right?
Well, that's usually our goal, Ezzy. I agree with you, and so hopefully we'll continue to do that. I'm trying to see if I can get a little bit of this video up with Alphonse Frey. See,
Yep.
that's the value right there.
Cool. The pronunciation is huge. I mean, I said Carter Yakemchuk. It's Yakemchuk as well. But I mean, that's the thing with the draft, and that's why I think it's a good opportunity. I think we're going to go live for about 20 more minutes here, Dave. But this is a great opportunity to give a shout out to all of the people in the scouting world. Obviously, we're talking more about, the people that we have on this show, or we post their work on the website, right? So we're talking about Stephen Ellis of Daily Faceoff, obviously Craig Button, good friend of the show. We're talking about Cam Robinson with Elite Prospects. We're talking about Chris Peters, who we've had on the show many times, who covers prospects. He's based in the U.S. Iowa, I believe, is where Chris Peters is based. Sam Cosentino, Sportsnet, Corey Pronman, Scott Wheeler with The Athletic. Like, these guys, they work all year round and they follow these prospects. And I think Dave M is trying to queue up Huss's conversation with Alphonse Frey. So are we going to play that, Dave?
But 2 minutes. I'm just trying to get it to work here. So let's work through some kinks, and you keep talking, and I'll finish it up, and we'll see if we can get something on there.
Well, no, I mean, just kind of to wrap up that thought. I mean, I think that, giving, these types of guys shout outs is important because they do a lot of hard work, and there's no way we could possibly know, what we know about these prospects without the fine work of people at, Elite Prospects and Daily Faceoff and TSN and Future Considerations. Another guy, Hassan Remus, had him on, Grant McCagg, who they have on every single year. He does great work. Shane Malloy, Hockey Prospect Radio on Sirius XM NHL Radio. These guys, like, it's a lot of work, and this weekend is kind of the culmination of all that work, where then you get to see these guys drafted by different NHL teams. But just wanted to give a shout out, because obviously we do this show 11 months a year, but we're more focused on the Jets and the Moose and the NHL. As opposed to the amateur side. I mean, we cover the WHL a little bit on the website, but I just wanted to give a shout out to all these guys who do all the hard work to bring us all this information, because we benefit from it, and so do the fans. I mean, I'm sure a lot of fans were Googling Alphonse Frey right after he was drafted by the Jets, right, Dave? So I'm not sure if we have that clip ready to go.
2 more minutes. I'm converting it over.
More minutes. What is it? Buffering, Dave? Is that what's happening?
No, it was the wrong format. So I'm just changing the format now, and as soon as I'm done that, I will get it up here. We'll be up momentarily. Don't you worry, Ez.
Well, and just to add one more thing, getting away from the draft for a second, we're less than 48 hours away from free agency, which is crazy. Got a long weekend here. We always talk about how ridiculous it is that free agency starts on July 1st. Like, why can't they start it on July 2nd? Just move it one day. And then I could still cover it because I've got my nose surgery on July 3rd, right? But the NHL, we know they're stubborn and they like to keep free agency July 1st. So Monday is when we're going to start talking about, some of the players that the Jets may sign.
That's right. And so hopefully this video is processing. Once it's processed, we'll get a couple of minutes with Alphonse Frey.
And
again,
shout out to Husson Remus, by the way. Husson Remus, I don't know if you saw this, Dave. They were stranded in Winnipeg. Their flight was delayed. I think it was 12 hours.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Like, they had to stay in Winnipeg one extra day. And big shout out to Husson Remus and the crew at Winnipeg Sports Talk. Connor Hrabchak, obviously, got to give him a shout out for filling in. I'm just giving all the shout outs today, Dave. That's what I like to do. But
that's what you're
Husson
doing.
Remus, they were in Nashville last summer, and they've been in Vegas for the last 4 days, just absolutely killing it with their coverage. So obviously everybody knows we're super tight with those guys. Remus was an original member of Illegal Curve. So big shout out to those guys for just pumping out a lot of content over the last 4 days.
I'll never complain. They're giving me lots of good content, including this clip with second rounder Alphonse Frey.
Yeah, early today at the Sphere. Yeah, it was kind of blackout actually, so it was pretty cool. It was a dream come true for sure, so that's good.
Tell us a little bit about, were you surprised that it was Winnipeg? Did you have many conversations with the Jets organization before that?
I mean, I was kind of surprised. I had a good meeting with them at the Combine. But I don't know. But it feels good to be a part of the Jets, so that's cool.
Tell fans back in Winnipeg what sort of a player you are.
Yeah, I'm a two-way defender that is more offensively minded. I like to have the puck on my blade to set up my teammates in good positions. So yeah, kind of good skating ability as well. So that's me.
How was this year, just the entire draft process been for you, and obviously being here in Vegas for the last few days?
Yeah, I mean, and in the beginning it was kind of different from last year. So yeah, it was hard in the beginning, with all the scouts and stuff. But I think I was pretty common with it, within the year. So ended pretty good, I would say.
Now, but if you're from Sweden, tell us, you were playing junior league. Where will you be going this year? To give us a little bit of an idea about your development path as far as the teams you played with and what's next for you.
Yeah, so I've been loaned out from the highest level in Sweden, SHL, to the second tier, Allsvenskan, to Björklöven. We had a pretty good team, so we got a chance to go up to the big league. But yeah, so that's I think that's a smart move for me to get the minutes and stuff. So yeah, that would be awesome, I think.
There you go. So that was Alphonse Frey. We get a little clip thanks to Huss and Remo. The full clip, the full interview is on illegalcurve.com under second round draft pick. And of course, we'll be updating the website throughout the course of the day, even after this broadcast ends. Well, as it's been a good run, this was an old school Illegal Curve broadcast, because for folks who remember when we were on the 1290 days, we used to do a 3-hour show every Saturday. We've taken it easy, as we only do 2 hours as opposed to 3. But look, seems like a good kid, seems like a nice kid, seems like he's got his head on his shoulders, knows what he is, and folks will remember that David Gustafson was playing in that second tier league when he went back to during COVID. He went back and he was playing
it's
with
a good
Grid.
hockey league.
Yeah,
Dave, you know this because you follow the Swedish prospects. Obviously, we don't watch a ton of Swedish hockey, but I mean, look at how they've done internationally. I mean, it's always Canada, the United States, Russia, Sweden, Finland, right? Like, Sweden is up there in the top countries, and I think there's a lot to be excited for with this prospect. And yes, we said this earlier. You have to be cautionary. You're not going to put too much pressure on this kid. He's only 18 years old. But like, he was drafted right around, like we talked about it, the consolidated ranking. We referenced our friends at Elite Prospects.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be a high second round pick. Some people had him a little bit lower, going kind of in that late second round, early third round. But this happens every single year, right? Like, we just talked about it. Berkeley Catton ended up going 6th overall to the Seattle Kraken right before the Ottawa Senators took Carter Yakimchuk.
Yeah.
And Berkeley Catton, some people thought, was kind of more of a late first round pick, right? So there's always going to be a lot of different opinions on prospects. But I think, for a team that doesn't have a lot of high-end prospects in their D pool, and I don't know if you would call Frey a high-end prospect, Dave, but certainly, when scouts are saying he's one of the best skaters in the draft and he put up good numbers in the Swedish Junior League, I think there's a lot to be excited about for Jets fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're looking at, there's a lot of scouts are high on this kid. And so, I mean, I don't think he was projected to be a first rounder by a lot. But again, you can go into the second, folks are pretty excited about Elias Salamonson, who's a second rounder. So I think that there's always, those diamonds in the rough that can be found. And this, we'll see. I mean, we're years away from this kid, other than when when I say he's going to be in Winnipeg, he'll be in Winnipeg for development camp. He may be there for training camp. I don't know if he will or won't, but the fact of the matter is, this is not a prospect that the Jets are going to be looking at or talking about, other than maybe for the Moose for another couple of years. So, and that's fine, because again, the draft is not about today, not about tomorrow. It's about the future. And we'll be covering the future for you here on a little website called illegalcurve.com. Now that this broadcast is coming to a conclusion, we do thank you, though, of course, for spending your Saturday here on the Illegal Special Edition, an extended edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I want to disqualify something. We have a bit of an issue, a plug-in issue, with getting the podcast out onto the usual channels like iTunes and Spotify. So the truth is that if you want to watch the show or listen to the show, the link will be on illegalcurve.com under the post, with the draft day coverage, Illegal Curve Hockey Show, and you can download it to wherever you want to download it to and listen at your leisure. But the problem is, right now, I'm just trying to work through the bug of trying to get the shows to iTunes and to Spotify. As soon as I figure that out, hopefully they'll be posted right away. If not, like I said, you can come to the website and you can download it from here. You can download our show from last night and give them a listen if you'd like. All right, that's about it for me. That's a bit for it for Ezzy, and we thank Drew, who joined us for the first 2 hours of this show. We thank all of you who choose.
Yeah, Mendel can only stick around for 2 hours. We stay here and deliver the fans the full 3 hours. We're not like Drew, who has to go to his fancy appointments, his manicures and his pedicures, and his massages. He's a real fancy boy.
He is a fancy boy. You and I were meat and potatoes, so we stick
Absolutely.
it out.
Love meat and potatoes.
Exactly.
My favorite meal. Meat and potatoes.
What kind of meat though? Like steak, burger?
Ooh. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll have steak for dinner tonight. I haven't had steak in a long time. Yeah, steak and potatoes. I mean, I mean, you know me, Dave. I like smoked meat. I like, chicken. Actually, I have some moose in my freezer that's been there for a while. My colleague at Hockey Manitoba, his dad, shout out to Matthew Ralph and his dad, Lauren Ralph. I got some moose there. So maybe I'll barbecue a little moose meat tonight. Who knows?
Wow. Well, okay. As long as you're not running out to the woods to try and kill a moose, that's probably good. The moose would probably kill you anyways, but it's been a good run. And we'll be back, of course, on this show next Saturday. We expect, we don't know 100%, but probably live from Canada, not from Hockey for All Center. That is is that July 6th, Ezzy? We're doing that show. So
July 6th. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's next Saturday. That'll be a 9 to 11 show. So come say hello to IC. If you're waiting for the merch, I should have an update. I hope by tomorrow.
It is Manitoba moose, by the way, Frosty. It's from northern Manitoba.
There you go. So I'm hoping to have.
We don't just talk about moose on the show. We eat moose.
Yeah. I hope Mick Moose isn't listening, because he might not like that segment, as he might be a little bit worried.
Well, I was going to say also apologies to all the vegetarians or vegans, but Big Daddy is an animal eater. I eat lots of meat.
Yeah.
I'm a herbivore.
I'm more of a fish guy. I eat a ton of fish, but you can't go wrong eating.
Well, walleye is delicious. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, walleye, please. What are you? Some you talking as you're looking a little fancy calling it a walleye. But anyways,
the pickerel.
Yeah, exactly. To answer Jack's question, no, I don't think Barlow is ready. We'll find out. He'll be at development camp. Like I said, expected to start July 3rd, because free agency is July 1st. I don't think they might be doing physicals on July 2nd. And then I believe, which is Wednesday, July 3rd, I think the players will be here in Winnipeg, probably getting a chance to be introduced to all of you. And again, Illegal Curve YouTube, we're going to have all those interviews. I'm going to be there all week. So be sure to keep it locked to us and make sure you're subscribing, because that's the way you find out when the freshest content in Winnipeg comes up. And that's from us here at Illegal Curve. But yeah, just to answer Jack's question, I do not think that Colby Barlow is ready. I think he'll be back in the OHL for one more season, and then get a chance to be either with the Jets or the Moose, most likely the Moose, and that's not a bad thing. And I'll say one thing about Barlow though, in special teams, his shot lethal, his skating still he's going to need some work, and that's okay because that has some type. Merch update, like I said, Dallas. I'm sorry. I apologize. This is it's not really on me, but it's kind of on me because I told everybody I would expect it to be done. I know that I've been trying to get a hold of our guy who's doing it. My expectation is we'll have some sort of update by Monday at the latest in terms of whether your merch has come out or not. And if not, then I will have an alternative. Anyways, guys and girls, thank you very much for joining us on this special edition of Illegal Curve Hockey. We will be back next Saturday. For Ezzy, for myself, have a great rest of your weekend. Be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. And happy Canada Day on Monday.
Happy Canada Day.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.